All right, so we should be live. How's everyone doing? Looks like we already got some people in the queue, which is great. So I'll get you guys in a second. Hold on one sec. Thanks. All right, got the tea. Put this down here. So for the stream this morning, it's going to be the call-in show, which should be fun. So we're hopefully going to get to hear lots and lots of opinions. If you want to be on the show, and hopefully Mason and other mods can help out by occasionally like just posting the link for people, but it's going to be in the description below. You just click that description as long as you and then as long as you're hopefully everyone is like polite and and friendly, but definitely encourage some disagreements and things like that. If you can put your camera on, that would be great. I may try some without cameras. I see we have one without a camera right now. Oh, they just left. But that would be great. But let's see. I guess let's just jump into it. So the goal of today is mainly just to bring as many people on as possible. They can ask a question, kind of bring a topic, and I'm going to have them sort of answer their own question or discuss their own topic, and maybe we'll have a little bit of a back and forth and go from there. All right. So, and if people in the chat have questions that they want us to answer, or any sorts of things, we can do that as well as we go along. So I'm going to bring the first person on here. All right. So the first person today will be Trainer Max. Hello there. Can you hear me? I can't hear you. Looks like we got some technical difficulties. Can you guys hear Max? I can't hear him.
How about now?
There we go. You're good.
Okay, can you hear me clearly? Or is it...
I can.
Yeah, I probably got some other microphone. But, yeah, you're doing good?
Everything is good. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
How's it going today?
Right, it's going good. It's evening here.
So what was on your mind to bring to the show tonight?
I just wanted to talk a little bit about the market, and for people that don't know, I'm a patron to Jake, so I can shout out that first. And I've been a patron for about a year, I think, and it's really great Discord and great people. So I would recommend that if you're interested in talking about Pokemon and collecting and stuff. So yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the market. To me, we see a bit of a shift from like the modern era and a bit more into the vintage era. To me, it was a low point for vintage in like December, and it have been stronger since that. What are your opinion about the state of the market if you compare like vintage to modern and the popularity and the sales and stuff like that?
I'm not sure if I see that totally. Like what parts of vintage? Because I think I see, for example, like I feel like the EX era is doing really well right now.
Yeah, the gold stars, for example, and stuff like that. And I see a lot more sales for the first edition Holo PSA 9 in WotC, and I see a bit of stronger prices there as well. If you compare it to earlier this year in December. But not of course not like your unlimited Charmander and stuff like that. That's not rare.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I feel like that's probably true. You can probably find I don't think it's so strongly true that you could probably find examples of 9s that are going for less right now than they were a few months ago in WotC First Edition Holos.
Yeah, sure.
But maybe slightly. I think that this month, for me, things seem to be softening a little bit overall this month. which I'll talk about at the end of the month a little bit. I feel like our low was sort of in December, generally speaking. And then the next few months, it was a little bit up, a little bit more solidifying. And now I'm feeling there's a little bit more weakness this month so far. But it's all very like minor. Like I don't feel like there's huge shifts. What are you seeing in the modern that's making you feel like the modern is really taking a hit, started to take a hit now versus the vintage? Like what data points are you looking at?
I see. I see like more booster boxes available. Of course, it has to do with more print runs, more getting printed and stuff like that. But I feel like that the top end of modern is doing really great. Like your alt arts and stuff like that, still doing really great. But so much of the more popular. The more what should I call it? The more less rare cards aren't doing as well as they did. I feel like a year ago. For example, like the same trend as vintage or unlimited Charmander have pretty much gone down for a while now, and I've seen that with like your Sword and Shield, Charizard, Elite Trainer Box, the sealed one, and stuff like that. Feel those are going down, but I still, I'm surprised how, yeah. I'm surprised though how good the Scream promos and stuff like that are holding, considering that the pop reports are just going up and up, and the market cap just going higher and higher, and they're still holding strong.
Yeah, I think it's like right now, it's definitely too broad of a market to make any like strong claims for me. One like modern's doing better, vintage is doing better, even like rare stuff or less rare, because there are examples that can kind of show, prove every sort of perspective right now. I do think overall, though, the rarer, more niche stuff seems to be holding a little bit better. Particularly your most popular Pokemon. So like the greatest examples of that are going to be things like your Gold Stars, things like your EXs, things like your middle generation, like Secret Rares, particularly the key Pokemon. And then we are seeing new high record prices for certain like low pop PSA 10s. Things like some unlimited PSA 10s like doing well because they're super low pop, so but it's such a broad market, and there is not enough data points for me to be like to conclude anything, hugely. I'm sort of just watching and engaging. I think overall though, there's a lot of there's more anxiety now, I feel like, than even 3 months ago from talking to people. And I think a lot of that just comes from the broader, the inflation, issues that we're hearing about that just came, what was it, 2 days ago, on Friday.
How much was it for you guys?
I forget, but it's like, records for the last month, all-time records.
Sure.
So I think that now how much that anxiety will actually matter is yet to be seen. Because people can say I'm very anxious and all these types of things, but it doesn't mean they're actually going to be selling. And it also doesn't mean that they're not going to continue to buy. So I kind of wait for I keep an ear out to what everyone's saying. And we're seeing a lot more in the sports card hobby and lots of hobbies, sort of like negative videos. I'm seeing more of them come out. But that isn't, I want to see that actually, in the actual sales data. And it needs to be significant enough to actually, when we see one or two sales go down 10 to 20%, I'm not ready to say that if I see like 10 vintage cards go down 10 to 20%, I'm not ready to say like the vintage market is down 20%, and it's the same thing for modern. So that's kind of where I'm at with that stuff, is more just looking and watching. But so you feel like going forward, your feeling of the market, Max, is that going forward, vintage seems to be consolidating and might uptick, or is more likely to uptick, and the majority of modern, outside of maybe like the top chase cards, you think is going to continue to go down?
Yeah, and I also feel I'm doing this thing that I every morning I'm checking the past 24 hours of sales of first edition Hollows PSA 9 and 10 in WotC, and I have seen a lot more, and not a lot more, but I've seen more sales now than like half a year ago, and I've seen more buy it now listings got bought. So I feel that there's some strange, maybe not a lot of strange, but a little bit more strange. And to me, I think that will continue forward, and a lot of uh, to me right now, I feel like the market is everyone is trying to find the next thing. So people are so busy trying to find the next thing that they miss that the next thing is right in front of them. And I feel like we will start to see some strange in the old stuff, especially first appearances and stuff like that soon. But yeah, of course, I might be wrong about that. But
No, absolutely. I mean, I tend to agree to a certain extent. I think, as I've talked about in the last few videos, like none of us really know what's going to happen next and can predict. And with the broader kind of like global markets, how that's going to affect our little tiny, trading card markets, like what it's going to do to that. But
I'm
what I am
surprised.
doing, all I can say is what I'm doing, right? And that's what I believe, which is I am budgeting myself really carefully, but I am buying good deals on WotC first edition hollows. I think that it's a good time to pick them up. Could that backfire and they could go down 30, 40 more percent? Absolutely. So I think that just needs to be understood. If you're in a really tight financial situation, or if you're buying this stuff looking to like quick flip it in 6 months, like that could work out, but it also could just be really highly risky.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
My mindset is long term as a collector. So, and I think that it's made sense starting in December. I think it's made sense to continue to pick stuff up with the negative, macroeconomic stuff. It makes me more wary for sure. But and so I'm looking for slightly better deals, and but I'm happy buying slightly on the way down. And I don't even think it's really been on the way down yet, to be completely honest. I think most, like, particularly when you're buying in auctions and you're patient, I think even if you've been buying the last few months, you're probably even or up slightly or slightly down after fees, and I think that if you like the items and you want the items as a collector or as a speculator, you believe in the market long term, I think that those are good buys, But what do you think? What do you think of all that? Do you feel like a similar sort of thing?
Yeah. I'm when I say those are good pickups right now, I'm not talking 6 months. I'm talking like 5 years, 5 to 10 years, and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And I'm kind of surprised that, or it was like that the last time too. We talked about it a bit before, but when the stock market crashed a bit in March of 2020, the Magic market did follow that trend and crashed as much as in lots of areas like the stock market, and Pokemon started to go up instead during that period. And now we see the same thing, that Pokemon isn't really affected by the trends of the stock market. It could be in the future for sure, but we haven't seen that yet. Like we have seen little correlation to Pokemon and the stock market. I think it's holding pretty good, considered all the stuff that happened in the world right now. And we had, for people that don't know, I live in Sweden, and we had like 6% inflation, I believe. So if you want to have inflation from a perspective from Europe as well. So I should also
Yeah,
say
as long as
should also mention that English is my second language. That's why I mess up sometimes.
you're doing great, Max. I would much rather watch your YouTube channel. No, I should go there. So yeah, what I would say is, like, as long as you didn't buy at the height of in the mania of prices, definitely the Pokemon market overall or you bought things that there's a lot of supply has crashed the prices, because there's a lot of cards, you know, even in the last 6 months that have crashed from $200 to $50 just because of supply, you know, mostly modern, but also some vintage stuff, also some promos, where, you know, so you have to be aware of that supply side. But with stuff like first edition WotC and high grade, you're not going to get an avalanche, like an avalanche of supply, like you saw with some of those promos or some of those.
Yeah, for sure. I bought the Pikachu Gold Star PSA 10 during the hype, and I'm still up on that. Like stuff like that did hold pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, you know, on this channel, that's what we talked about. It's like the only things I would touch are like niche trophies and maybe like, you know, PSA 10 low pop, you know, high desirable stuff. But, you know, for me, I wouldn't have even touched that. Like, I would have expected that card to come down too, you know,
Yeah,
you know, but it didn't.
Yeah, but I got it for like 60% or something like that.
Oh, there you go.
That's why. Yeah.
There you go. But yeah, you know, so I think, you know, I agree with you for the most part. I do think that as far as like correlating this to the stock market, I think the market was far too small, and still probably is too small and unestablished. And I think it's far too, it's not nearly optimized enough to feel like comfortable. Like I feel like a lot of just random prices happen and stuff happen. And I've been sort of amazed. So I talked to a lot of people after this last heritage thing, and they were shocked by some of the low prices in this heritage block. But those low prices have been happening for everything. Like, they still thought we were at like the top of the mania. Like, these are people who are like pretty into the hobby. And it just shows that there are a lot of people who only watch the trophies, or only watch certain cards, or only watch the first edition booster box. And then when they see it go down, like, they thought it was still going to be like 400, 500,000, you know, that first edition booster box. And then when they saw it, you know, sell for 210, they were shocked by that. Whereas us who have been watching the market, were like, yeah, that falls in line with like how every first edition base card in that box is done, and probably makes like, you know, good sense within the broader market. So why I say that is it's very unoptimized. There's lots of people with lots of opinions who aren't necessarily following it that closely. And that can cause a lot of like weird buys and people like weirdly overpaying, or like outlier data points. And so I don't feel comfortable with this market in terms of like the prices that we're seeing now are like the right are like the optimized prices, whereas like the stock market is like insanely optimized at all times. So we'll see. I mean, obviously during the crash during the pandemic in the stock market, Pokemon was like insanely soaring, and then, you know, Pokemon crashed quite a bit. And while Pokemon crashed quite a bit, the stock market was actually starting to do well, particularly your more blue chippy, you know, type stocks. And now this year, you know, the stock market has really come down, particularly, you know, tech and some of the high flyers, but everything, the majority of things are down over 10, 15% now, and some of the high flyers are down 60, 70%. So it's just crazy, but I think it's interesting. And I think trying to follow the data and try to find those patterns matter. I just don't think for me, we have enough data for me to be like, this is uncorrelated with the stock market, or this is more correlated. And I don't think you're necessarily saying that, by the way. It's just sort of,
I just think it's interesting that Magic did follow the stock market in 2020 and not Pokemon.
Yeah, I mean, I think to me, I don't really follow Magic enough, and I'm not engaged in Magic enough. I follow the prices, but I'm not engaged in the community of people who are like buying the high-end cards, why they buy it. I think the Pokemon market largely exploded because of people from the sports cards world. I don't think that they went into Magic. So I think that I think they went into Magic probably later, and less of them. So it's one of these things that, like, some of these markets are a lot more connected than other markets because of the cross collectors who are like running all of these markets, like the big spenders. And Magic, right, is a lot more established. A lot of the higher end collectors are like in their 40s, have already bought and completed a lot of their collections, these types of things, versus Pokemon people that are more starting out. So it's interesting. So we do have some more people waiting. Anything else, Max?
No, thank you for having me. It was a great conversation.
Great having you on. Max is a really great dude. We love him. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
I appreciate it, man.
See you.
See ya. All right, let's see here. There we go. All right. Up next is Colorston Cardboard.
What's up, Jake? How's it going?
It's going good. How you doing?
Pretty good. I just want to pick your brain on how I feel like if you break down like Magic and Pokemon to like the basic fundamentals, like the extremely basic fundamentals, they operate very similarly. So like I feel like things are just kind of, as long as the IP remains relevant, it doesn't even necessarily matter how popular it is. As long as it remains relevant, then all these items are inevitably, it just seems like it's inevitable that they go up at like that 8 to 10% rate per year, just like Rudy always says. Now you might have years where they go down or they flatline for a decade, but I feel like the longer that they go down or flatline, the more volatile the upswing is going to be, and then the more volatile the downswing is going to be as well. And the reason that Magic doesn't have the volatility is because it hasn't had drastic events like Pokemon has. Like when Pokemon came out initially, it was, I mean, I don't know if we've ever seen anything like it whenever it initially came out. And that, I think that's why all the products they released for a long period of time after that were, I mean, everybody thought they were kind of worthless. Nobody thought they were going to go up in value, anything like that, for a very long period of time. And so, you know, more got lost, more got opened. People didn't care about it, but the IP was always relevant. And so when you have a drastic event, all of a sudden everyone looks around and there's like no product left to get if you want the old stuff. And even the periods where the product is unpopular, it's inevitable, in my opinion, that it gets open, because like if I'm not big into Magic, but if I'm gonna go get into Magic, I'm gonna probably go to whatever the newer sets are that are out right now. And if I see that there's a 10-year-old box of cards that is the same price as what's out now, I'll buy one of those boxes, open it up, you know, and after enough people do that, the prices all start to rise. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is Pokemon seems like it's more volatile, but I feel like if Magic and Pokemon are a relevant IP for 200 years, they'll have a very similar price appreciation over time, probably somewhere between 8 and 15% per year over that 200-year period. What do you think about that?
And we're talking just sealed product specifically.
Yeah, the individual cards, there's a lot more semantics, I feel like, that go into it. And nostalgia is a lot more important, because if you don't actually care about that, like in Magic, people, there's not as many specific cards that people care about, and it works. There's just more semantics that go into it, because like, for example, even though I don't care about the Gengar from base set Sword and Shield at all, I've thought about starting to put together a Gengar collection, and there's Gengars throughout the whole history of Pokemon. So people kind of gain interest in cards after the fact, even though they weren't around when that card was released. Whereas for Magic, there's just a lot of semantics that go into it. So yes, like more focused on sealed product stuff. It just seems like it's going to go up at a very consistent rate over time. But it might not seem that way depending on what events happen. It spikes up, shoots down, but I feel like they'll be very similar over a 200-year period, assuming the IP remains popular over a 200-year. Not necessarily popular. The popularity can go up and down, but as long as it's relevant and it exists because print runs decline whenever it becomes, and print runs increase whenever it's more popular. So over time, they all seem to just appreciate at the same rate. What do you think about that?
So I think the issue with like pop culture collectibles with the sort of like linear argument is like, why do you think? So I can think of one of two arguments. We could argue, okay, 8 to 15% is the magic number for sealed product because it's not dependent on the hobby becoming more popular. It's just dependent on two things that will happen, which is that some of the product will be opened or a certain percentage of the product will be opened. And then there's some sort of like psychological thing that happens that you illustrated, which is as a box gets older, people are just willing to pay more money for it. And that will continue. So there'll be less and less supply. People will want it more and more because it's older, something like that. And so even if the hobby doesn't get more popular, the same people who could have bought that box 10 years ago will now pay 8 to 10% more every year. I'm not sure that that's true. I'm not sure it's not true. I'm just not sure that it's true. And I wonder if the higher box prices have a lot more to do with demanding with more people in the hobby now than before, and how much that's affected it versus just the inherent sort of like traits of booster boxes over time and the way the current market sees them. And I don't know the answer to that, but why I'm wary of sort of like the Rudy, like 8% always. And I don't know if if he ever actually says that, but like, any sort of 8 to 15% always is maybe that's happened because demand has always gotten bigger over time. And will that always happen? Because obviously pop culture collectibles, like they have a window where they become more and maybe more and more popular. And then they can have like resurgences because like movies, I mean, we're seeing it with like Marvel and Star Wars. And so, but if you think that it's part of why I like Pokemon, because I think that Pokemon doesn't have multiple generations who have a lot of money spending in it yet. And why I sort of like the window for Pokemon as far as like maybe demand actually will increase and continue to increase, which will help it. Magic, I'm not so sure about. It's going to depend on sort of like what Magic does and maybe connecting with other IPs. I think Magic is more risky for that. And Magic's a lot more risky, in my opinion, for dying out or dying out quicker or stagnating more. But I think both hobbies could stagnate in terms of demand, in terms of collectible demand. And I think with a huge increase in Pokemon and Pokemon collectors, there could be still a certain percentage of people who are here now who won't be here in a year or two. And maybe there aren't enough new people coming in to continue to fill that demand. And if Pokemon is printed more than ever now during the Sword and Shield period, and there's less people here in a couple of years, I'm not sure I wouldn't expect to see like continued 8 to 15% growth just on the idea that there are going to be less boxes and just on the idea that people will pay more for older stuff. Although I do agree that those things are important and those things do increase prices. I'm just not sure it's enough. 8 to 15% a year is a lot compounding. like in the first few years, that's not that hard, but like that becomes like, we've talked about like really expensive boxes in 5, 10, 15 years. And there's also going to be more and more sets competing with each other and more TCGs competing for the same base. So there just needs to be more and more people. So because of all of those factors, my conclusion is I wouldn't feel confident in that, but I don't think it's impossible. But like the sort of like, it feels like, how could that not happen type vibe that I think some people think about. For me, I just listed like a number of, I think, question marks or risk factors that we don't know. And when people quote like, well, everything's gone up 8 to 15% now, it's like, well, yeah, because we're at the all-time high in terms of demand and popularity. Will we be at an all-time high in terms of demand and popularity in 20 years? If we are, then, and it's the same type of linear growth, then maybe you will see that 8 to 15%, continue. I also think like, how many of us really need 8 to 15% return on our collectibles to enjoy it? I mean, that is massive. Those are pretty massive returns. In my opinion.
Yeah, I just like
please. Yeah. What do you think of all that?
I just like to think about macroeconomic stuff, and sure. I'm not even necessarily interested in it, how it pertains to cards. Like it kind of seems to play a factor in Bitcoin and sometimes even the stock market in extreme scenarios. Like it seems like even the stock market, the longer it goes sideways or down, the more volatile it is going up. And it's really weird to think about how when things are going sideways or down, everyone thinks it's going to be there forever. And then all of a sudden, one day, people look to the left and the right, and there's nothing left to buy. And then people lose their minds and things go, the longer sideways or down, people just get crazy and think that it's all gone forever.
As long as there's still interest, because like you could say you could name tons of collectibles or Beanie Babies, but like there's tons of collectibles, there's tons of items, there's tons of crypto coins, there's tons of all sorts of things that people in it could have said that, and like, well, but as soon as like a few more people come in here, but it all is dependent on that demand, right? Because what you're talking about is FOMO, that you see the parabolic growth because now it's like, oh my God, like in this market, like people are super patient now all of a sudden, right? People are risk averse in these sort of like down markets. And in those down markets, like people are waiting for that best deal. But if all of a sudden, I completely agree with you, all that stuff gets dried up and the demand is still there, you will see another parabolic growth in Pokemon, Magic, like whatever. I'm in complete agreement with you around like the psychology of that. It's just not a guarantee that that demand will ever be there. And the more supply there is, the less likely the more demand you need for that FOMO to hit. Because, it's like, yes, for like items that there are only a few of, you only need a few, few hundred people or whatever. But for items that are incredibly mass produced, that are all kept in mint condition because people think they'll be valuable, that combination, you need a huge, look at 80s, 90s sports, you can still get booster boxes for $10, $15. And sports has bigger demand now than it ever did back then. But because they printed so much product, that stuff is still worthless even now. So so that's why that supply side is so important. But the psychology you're talking about is exactly right. You just have to think about the supply side, and then also it's not a guarantee. Demand is not a guarantee, and people are really bad. And lots of people demonstrated it. Think about yourself this year. Like, we are really bad. We are prisoners of the moment. People are constantly prisoners of the moment, and they think that whatever's popular will be popular forever. They think what's unpopular will be unpopular forever. And then you have people who are trying to sort of like guess or kind of like be ahead of that. And sometimes they're going to be right. Sometimes they're going to be wrong, but it's very hard to imagine things disappearing that are really popular in the moment for people, but it happens. Like, there are fads and there are things that people love that are everyone's super obsessed with. And then over the course of 5, 10, 15 years, it can completely disappear. Now, the bigger it is, the more businesses, the more multi-generational, the less likely that's going to happen. If you're going to place a bet on anything, for me, it would be Pokemon in terms of TCGs, card collectibles. Like, it's by far the biggest. And I think the company's done by far the best job, in my opinion, in terms of not overprinting, in terms of controlling the IP, all sorts of things. They haven't even gone to serialized and other sorts of things yet that they could put in their back pocket. So, what do you think? Any last things to sort of add to that, or that spark anything for you?
No, it just seems like magic for where the product.
Oh, I'm losing you a little bit. Can you hear me?
Yeah, am I cutting out?
You just cut out, and I couldn't hear what you were saying there. Can you try again?
Yeah, it just seems like there's like a magic number, and maybe that's 8%.
Yeah, you're cutting out again. I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah. My phone's at 10%. So, on to the next caller.
So what I'm getting, and just tell me if this is what you're saying, you still feel like, despite what I said, there's still some magic number of 8 to 10%.
It really heavily relies on the IP remaining relevant. It doesn't have to always grow or shrink. Obviously, if it shrinks significantly, that could stop it. But as long as it stays semi-relevant, there's like a certain number that's different for everybody where it all of a sudden becomes worth it to list that product for sale. If it's never listed for sale, then it might as well not exist. And so that's kind of why people thought there wasn't a lot of Jungle Unlimited boxes out there. And all of a sudden now there's a ton because now it's actually worth it for people to list them for sale. But yeah, it just, and yeah, it's probably a dead period for sealed product for a long time. But the longer that dead period goes on, I think the more volatile the upswing is. And that's why Magic doesn't seem to move as volatile, because there's no crazy events that happen. I don't know. It's kind of a weird thing where people don't list product unless.
Oh, so we lost him. So I think his internet cut out or his phone died, probably on us. So I guess it sounded like, I mean, I think we agree on the psychology of what can parabolically move markets, but I feel like he's underestimating. I think I feel a little bit in the language that he feels like it's a guarantee and that demand doesn't matter as much, or even if demand stays constant, because he used the words as long as the IP stays relevant. And to me, what does relevant mean? Does that mean continuing to grow, or does that mean staying the same? Or I'm muted too. Can people hear me? David says I'm muted too. You have internet issues? We good? Okay. I think people can hear me. So yeah, so I am of the belief that the reason prices are higher now is, and I said this before, is because demand. There are more people in this hobby. There are more people in the card world. There are way more people. And I think anyone thinking that that is definite going forward is not. I don't know where you're getting that from. That sort of. But again, anyone who says that can't happen, because we have a lot of like overly pessimistic people right now. Like some leave, comments on my videos and all sorts of things that are like, the sort of like I told you so crowd. Like I talked completely bearishly about this market, right, for a really long time, and so did many people on this channel. But that doesn't mean that it also doesn't have upside. Like there's a middle ground there. And I think some of those overly bearish people who say it's dead, Pokemon can't possibly get popular again, right? They're falling for the same trap that I think a lot of the Mania people fell for, kind of prisoner of that moment. But there definitely is risk, in my opinion, and it could go either way. And so I think if you're buying this stuff, it's important to understand that. But everyone can trolling me. But everyone, everyone has to make a decision for themselves. Like if you think that it's definitely a guarantee, then you should purchase, right? And it shouldn't matter what I think. And I do think though it's dangerous to quote prices or quote people's experience, like because Rudy's made a lot of money and because people just say, well, things have all gone up this to this point, 8 to 15%, but they can't explain why it's gone up 18, 15%. And they can't explain why it will continue going up for sure. They just sort of say things like, well, it's done it in the past, it will again. Like that's not a good, like that isn't, they're not talking about the fundamentals behind it. It's mainly just about sort of like, here's a really successful person who's made a lot of money, who's done it. And so I'm going to do it too. Like there is a little bit of that, I think out there for some people. So that's what I would say. So we got one more person waiting in the queue right now. For those who are just coming in, we're doing a live call-in show today. So we'd love to hear from like everyone in the chat here, as many people as possible. So anyone who wants to join in, there's only one person ahead of you right now. So click that link in the description below, and you can hop right onto the live show after our next guest. All right. So next person on is Too Slow Bro. I'm going to bring you on here. Hey there.
What up?
How's it going today?
Going good, Jake. Just wanted to say, really enjoy your content. So thanks for having me on.
Appreciate it. Thanks for coming on, man. So what's on your mind for today? What shall we get into?
Follow up with like what the last guy was saying.
Yeah.
I'm pretty confident in the hobby. I've been around since since inception of the hobby, but took a break like a lot of people and then came back around like 2018. Actually like shortly after Evolutions came out. you know, it was very nostalgic, obviously seeing like the old arts and everything again. So that's like what drew me back. But I don't know. I guess like my confidence in the health of Pokemon is mostly around the actual TCG itself. I think a lot of people are pretty short sighted and like don't, they only have like the perspective of a collector. And since I have like more experience like competitively playing as well as collecting, um, I feel like I have that perspective. But yeah, I wouldn't call myself like an investor or anything like that. But yeah, I have a lot of faith in Pokemon as a whole, as a company, and as a product. So just wanted to say that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think when we think about it, when we try to think about it like analytically and financially, right, using data,
Mhm.
it's sort of like, what does that mean exactly? Like how, like my brain would be like, okay, so I think, and going to what the last caller talked about too, like for me, like let's say that I'm 60-70% sure that the hobby will continue to grow. Okay. How
Mhm.
much do I think it's going to grow? Now, if the hobby continues to double every 5 to 10 years, how much do I think those booster boxes are going to be worth?
Yeah.
And I don't know, right? Nobody knows the answers to these things. But let's
Right.
say it doesn't grow. What if it halves? How much do you think the modern booster boxes are going to be worth? Do you think they're going to go up? Do you think they're going to stay the same? Do you think they're going to go down? You could probably make a case for each one. And it probably
Mhm.
is going to depend on how much was originally printed, how much was opened, and probably the quality of the set. Because you could have the hobby have in popularity, but if
Yeah.
enough is opened and there isn't like, and let's take Evolving Skies or something, and maybe it isn't printed as much as everyone thinks, whatever. And, you know, half the size could still increase the price or keep the price stable,
Right.
or it could tank it because we needed we needed all of those people, and we needed increased people to keep those prices up because now people would just prefer the newer set or something else is popular. So my point in all of that is just like it's too it's too nuanced and sophisticated of a market to predict, in my opinion. Like,
Yeah.
and to say 10% or 15% or every 5 years it goes up this much, and then you get people on the negative side saying like it's going to be worth nothing. It's all these types of things. Like whenever I hear those strong arguments either way, I'm sort of like, what data are
Yeah.
you looking at? Like, because I can sit here and I think I know this market, as well as the next guy, and I'm aware of everything and super engaged, and I don't know what data or what information you're using
Right.
to super confident about how many people are going to be here in 5 years or 10 years. Now, in the same token, I think if you feel strongly about it and you want to take the risk, it's like great, and as far as like my confidence that like Pokemon will be somewhat strong in five
Yeah.
to 10 years, super strong. Like
For sure.
it would be really shocking if there was just like no channels, no one collecting
That's
Pokemon,
not happening.
and no one talking about Pokemon in 10 years. But I think the odds of it decreasing 20% is maybe a lot more realistic. And what would that do to the market? And maybe, maybe I'll ask a question for you.
Yeah.
Do you
Yeah.
think it's more likely to grow over the next 5 years, shrink over the next 5 years, or stay the same? And obviously you and I we have no actual idea, but like if you had to guess, like
Yeah.
what do you think?
Uh, I think I honestly think it's gonna grow. I think that Pokemon is on top of it as far as marketing goes. They're gonna put out more games, more movies. There's like a Netflix show coming out. At least that's like up in the air. I think that's like what the rumor is. And like I said, I'm like so confident that the actual TCG itself, like seeing how it's grown from like events like this, where like only a couple hundred people would like go to these events, and now it's like a worldwide, thousands and thousands of people are involved in the TCG at this point. So yeah, I have no doubt in my mind that it's going to continue to grow. Now, are we going to see down points in the market, like collectible wise? Yeah, of course. But I think like the strength comes in like the media that Pokemon produces. I mean, I think a lot of people forget that like these cards are used for a game. Like it's not just a stock. You know what I mean? So that's where I'm coming from. I think I think the game is going to keep it alive. The video games, the movies, all that. And I think a lot of people just look at like these down periods that we have, and they don't have any involvement in Pokemon. They just have like the nostalgia, and enjoy collecting. So maybe they're more of like a short term, bubble person that just came in or something like that, and they don't really understand because they don't have that like long term perspective, like time in the hobby, if you will. But yeah, just to touch on anybody who's investing, I think you've always given really good advice as far as only investing like what you're comfortable with, what you can afford, and that's what I've always done. You know, and you can always level yourself up by trading, selling, and stuff like that. So.
Yeah. I mean, I personally think the next 2 years are going to be really interesting.
Yeah.
In 2 years, if the hobby has not shrunk quite a bit, I think it'll be more in 3 more years, if that makes sense. But I do think there's a chance that the hobby shrinks first, and maybe in 5 years it's like a similar size as it is now, or maybe even not quite. But I think in 10 years, maybe, I think in the long run, it'll be much bigger than it is now and much more people collecting and multiple generations.
Yeah.
But how confident am I in that? Not like extremely confident.
Well,
like, no, I don't. I'm one dude, so it's sort of like, but for me in the short run, as PSA opens up and as more and more stuff is graded and there's so much on the market, I just wonder how people are going to respond to that. But I do think there are areas of the hobby that are going to withstand that much better, and areas of, like, for example, like there might be areas of the hobby where demand doesn't go down at all. There's still the same number of collectors in certain areas, but then other areas of the hobby where collectors get bored or move on. I think that's possible too. But thank you so much, man.
For sure. Yeah. I think the world economics, all that is going to definitely affect almost every market across the board, as we're seeing, So, yeah. Yes.
But I think, and as a number of people said in the chat too, like, I think for you and I, this is true. Like, we love this stuff. Like, it's fun talking about it and thinking about what's going to happen. But like, I have said a bunch, like, if everyone leaves, I'll just own all of the cards. And I don't, like, my girlfriend won't be too happy. But
I don't see that happening, but that would be great.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not like it's something that, like, honestly, if everyone stopped liking it, there would be upside in it for me because I could actually own. Now, I don't want that because part of the fun is like it's the chase, but also it's the community. Like, going to Collecticon, talking to people, like hanging out with people is so much of what I enjoy about the hobby. But before I had a YouTube channel, I collected for 4 years in a row privately, and I loved it. Also. So it's also a private collectible hobby for me too.
For sure. Yeah, I enjoy the community also. Been trying to get to like some TCG events for a long time, but COVID prevented that. So yeah.
Come in person. I'm gonna try to go. We're gonna go to Denver Collecticon, and I'm gonna try to go to the National. It's not 100%.
Nice.
Coming up in Atlantic City. So yeah, if you can make it to those or any of them, come say hi to all of us.
Probably won't be able to, but like Worlds is probably like number 1 on my list. I just want to get to one of those eventually. So hopefully when it's in the States again, I'll be there.
Sweet, man. Pleasure talking to you. I recognize the name for sure, but it's nice.
Nice to meet you finally.
Good to meet you too, man.
Have a good one.
All right, so we got 3 people waiting now. So we're the next person is your average player. All right, you on here? Hello there.
Hey, I don't really have like an investment question. It's mostly just I just wanted to say that I love the content. I love the great work you put in. And as an 18-year-old, I have limited amounts of funds, and I live in Norway, where shipping and taxes and everything is really expensive.
Yeah.
I just wanted to know what would be the best ways to like seek out kind of deals and stuff. Would it be like Facebook Marketplace, try to talk to people? And how do you like establish a relationship with someone without it seeming like, oh, I want to use you or something?
Okay, so I mean, the first part, I really don't know. I'd be lying to tell you what if I said like this is what I would do in your exact situation with your amount of money in Norway. It's all of this stuff is a math problem, right? So you just want to make sure. I mean, it's as simple as like you want to buy stuff for cheaper than what you can sell it, and you have to factor in all of those fees and all of the shipping. So I don't know where it makes sense to buy from you most. Like the consults that I've done with people in other countries and a lot of my interactions is that they've told me they get really good deals and in local places sometimes, local Facebook, groups, those types of places. I don't know, if that's available to you or what that looks like, but I would look at that for sure. I think when you're in a market like that, it's understanding that how many other people are in the similar situation, because like people in Norway, like a lot of the people I talk to, in Europe or Australia or other places around the world, they pay more for their cards, but they also sell their cards for more to other Europeans because those Europeans would have to buy from here and then have to pay huge, so because of that, it's just a math problem and understanding that math problem. So you'll be able to sell more to Europeans than I would be able to sell to Europeans. But to get the cards, you may have to pay more initially than me. But hopefully it would work out either way and there'd still be good opportunity. Does that make sense? Yeah. But unfortunately, I can't be like, here's the super secret Polish Pokemon club. But if I hear something, I'll let you know. I do know there's one guy in Poland who had a massive amount of like the 2000 base cards. I don't know if you can get in touch with whoever that is and get some of those. But so what was your second question? I'm sorry.
No, it was mostly just if you're going to establish a relationship with someone outside to get like things shipped and everything, how do you? I don't want to seem like I'm just there using the other person. I'm more like, hey, we're both in the hobby. This can be like an established friendship-ish.
Yeah. Well, you're asking a deep philosophical question that's really behind that, which is, are humans altruistic? Are we all using each other? And are we reciprocally altruistic? Are we, these types of philosophical questions? And I think, so I wrote my senior thesis on altruism. And like, there's something that is deemed in the field called altruistic impulse, which is a psychological phenomenon where you experience the impulse to help someone for no benefit of your own. And I'm sure you experience that, so I wouldn't worry so much. I think sometimes the philosophical thinking on altruism, like people are more altruistic than they realize often. And it's mainly just you're not in a lot of moments in your life where you can really help someone. But I think most people, if you have an opportunity to help someone and be there for someone, even if it's not going to benefit you or you're not going to get some sort of glory, I think most people have an impulse to help in that moment. So I think that's the good news about human beings. As far as like what you're talking about, like a little more of the business side, there's a whole book. There are many books written on like, Dale Carnegie's like How to Win Friends and Influence People is all about sort of how to be helpful to people, how to give them what they want, and then they'll like you, basically. They'll be close to you. All those things are true, but I think people are pretty good at telling the difference between, maybe not everyone, but I think a lot of people are pretty good at telling the difference between people who have that altruistic impulse, which is like the people who you really trust in your life, like who you love and who they love you. You're very likely to have a lot more of that impulse that you would sort of do anything for them. And you're not looking for something back. In more business and peer relationships, particularly with people you don't like, you're going to have more of that. Well, I don't really like this person, but here's what they can do for me. And you're going to have more of those thoughts. I think those things are unavoidable. We're human beings. We're pretty complex, brilliant creatures. Our brains are incredibly evolved. So we're going to have those conversations, but you also are going to have that impulse to spontaneously help people too. So, and what I would say is like groups of altruists from a game theory perspective do better than groups of cheaters. So there's actually luckily, fortunately, and it's part of why I think genetically, we've developed sort of cooperation and love, and why love is so important to us is because we actually, from a, you know, Darwinian sort of fitness perspective, we actually, groups of altruists do better than groups of cheaters, because groups of cheaters, everyone is expending lots of energy worrying about each other and trying to get as much as they can from each other, whereas groups of altruists avoid all of that wasted energy, and they're able to cooperate, and then both people end up doing better than they would have if they were trying to undercut each other. And so that's also why in the business world, like cultures that are very like cooperative, that are like really good managers who encourage people's growth, like those companies do the best also, fortunately. Now, the unfortunate thing is that cheaters within a group of altruists will always do better than all the altruists. That's the other part of game theory, is that so if you don't know someone's a cheater, they will cheat you and do better than you, but eventually they usually get found out. And so hopefully that was a little bit interesting. Or
You know, it's cool to hear, and you got a great amount of knowledge, so it's always fun learning new stuff.
So there's sort of the ethic morality conversation there, and then there's the like building skills. The building skills part, if you want to think about it, you can read a book, read Dale Carnegie's book. You know, it's like a classic business book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, and it will have that discussion. It does not have an ethical, moral discussion, and that's what you were kind of talking about more. The sense I was getting from you was like, I know how to do that, or I could do that, but it doesn't always feel good to me.
Yeah, it feels wrong sometimes. Yeah. It feels like you're using someone in a way.
Yeah, and I think that that's your own personal journey. I mean, there have been plenty. There are plenty of situations like I could have more money or more power, probably, and that's true for everyone, you know. But we have our sort of what we're comfortable doing and what we're not comfortable doing, and there are good reasons behind that. And you know, when is enough too? You know, so I that's your own personal ethical journey that every human being is on. But it's cool that you're thinking about it, man. At 18, that's awesome. You got a philosophical mind.
Thank you so much. And it's great having people on. It's fun to learn from everyone.
Yeah, and I love like just meeting actual people, getting to talk to them. It's thrilling, honestly. It's like really, this technology is insanely cool to me.
Yeah,
as an old man. Anything else?
No, that was it.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Definitely hop back on another one if you can. All right.
Yeah, I wish to. It's a great time having it right now. EU friendly.
EU friendly. That's the hope, is to be friendly to as many people as possible. Yeah. All right, man. Have a good rest of your day.
Have a good rest of your day.
All right, David, you are on. How's it going, man? Can you hear me okay? Ooh. David, can you hear me? Hey, David, can you hear me? Well, I think we're having a little bit of technical difficulty. We'll give David 1 second here. I can't hear you, David, but can you hear me? All right, I'm going to give it another few seconds here, and then we'll put you back in line. All right, so I'm going to pull up the next person, but David, I'm going to put you back in the waiting room, all right? All right, Pokemon Gym Hero is up next. How you doing?
Can you hear me?
I can. Well, nice to have you here.
I appreciate it. I don't know if you remember me. I reached out to you in the DMs about trying to come on to your last live. But
awesome, yeah. Man. I'm glad you were here. Yeah. We what's on your mind for today?
You know, when I say this, I don't want to be disrespectful to you or anybody who makes content on YouTube or anything like that. But I feel like we're kind of in an era or like a pocket within the, you know, hobby where there's so many people making YouTube content telling people, you know, these are the top 5 best investments. You know, this is what you should be investing in. And when I got into the hobby, you know, it was mainly about buying what you like, buying what you love, it's pretty much what you still preach. You know, that's what I follow either way. And over time, that always works out usually. if you just stick to what you like, because at the end of the day, like you said, if it goes down, you still have the item, you still like it, you still enjoy it. So do you think that we're in a space where there's, I don't want to say too many, but there's just so many people creating content, trying to tell people what to buy, and then those are influencing people who don't do, enough research or have enough time to do that dive, to distinguish whether something could be a good investment or a good purchase, or they don't even like Pokemon. Maybe they don't even know Pokemon. They're just like, hey, this guy's saying, here, buy this. I'm gonna go buy, 5 cases, 10 cases, throw it in the closet. So I'm just curious what you think about that.
So my mind goes to two places. So the first thing I would say is that if you don't, and this isn't you, but for anyone out there, right? They're not going to be watching this anyway, hopefully. But if you don't like in any sort of financial talk or market talk around Pokemon, just don't watch the financial or market channels, right? So I don't think that it's fair for anyone to be like, you can't enjoy talking about the market, and the only correct way to do it is like just to collect the cards and play the game and never think about the market. I would just say like, that's not how I enjoy the hobby. I enjoy the hobby in multiple ways, and hopefully we can like have mutual respect, and I'm not saying you're saying that, but that would be
no, for sure.
I think there are people out there who are sort of like, who would look at my channel and be like, I'm bad for the hobby, talking about the market in any capacity is bad for the hobby. So there's that sort of, but what you're talking about is more like, maybe it's fine to have market channels, but that maybe some market channels are good for the hobby or fine for the hobby, and some maybe aren't so good for the hobby. And, for me, I think when you have someone coming on who doesn't have a lot of experience, guaranteeing people that they're going to make money, telling, flashy thumbnails, titles, all, trying to play the YouTube game because they want to get a really big YouTube channel, but they don't necessarily have a lot of knowledge. Like, yeah, it's not really good for, if people are listening to that and don't have a lot of money and are listening to recommendations and buying, like that's clearly not a great thing. And the person is profiting in terms of growing their YouTube channel off of that. How much that's happening, I'm not sure, in terms of like how many people are watching these channels who wouldn't buy and are now buying because this person, I think a lot of people are already buying and they like those channels because it makes them feel better about the thing they're buying. Like
validation.
Yeah. Like having me coming out and saying, I'm not sure what's going to happen doesn't feel as good as like someone saying like that booster box you bought is definitely going to go up 18, 15% a year. You don't have to worry. There's zero chance that it will go down. Just buy the 5 most modern booster boxes and you'll be great. Right. Like that for some people, that's going to feel better. And
but I still think you're giving an honest perspective, because truthfully, no one can tell the future,
That's my perspective, but some people seem to believe that they can. So, and listen, there's a lot of people in this world. There's a lot of people online, and, that stuff does not bother me nearly as much as it did during the hype, because during the mania, it's when there were so many new people and all of them didn't know what they were doing. And unfortunately, frankly, those channels were the ones growing and getting out there because they had the flashier things. And so a lot of people, their videos with 200,000 views that say just buy the 5 most modern sets, and there are a lot of people who didn't find channels like mine, or there are a number of channels like mine, that didn't find that for like 6 to 8 months. And most of those people have come up to, I've had at least 100 people come up to me with the same story and over the last year, which is, I wish I had found your channel 6 months earlier. It would have saved me a ton of money, a ton, all these types of things. Because of the YouTube algorithm game, that's the reality, is that like, I'm not going to get the same platform as someone with like flashy, but there's also the part of like what people want and what people are interested in. And there's probably also more people interested in that content. So at this point, I'm not super mad at it. It doesn't bother me that much. The only time it gets on my nerves a little bit, it might be if like someone says something that's like just ridiculous, like, or makes something up, like they can't possibly reprint this, or people who like have no product, who have no sales history, charging people like consults for how to like buy and sell. Like, but like the amount of that stuff happening in like every other market, every other space in the world is huge. What I mean?
Sure.
So that's sort of my general attitude. And there's just nothing you can do about it except like do your stuff, and people can sort of choose what to watch.
I mean, I'm not mad about it, or I don't think that, you know, people shouldn't create the content that they want to create. I just think that there was a lot of bleed over and a lot of people within that, you know, 2020, 2021 who made a lot of money. And that was off of, you know, a hype and demand period that was just explosive that we never seen before. And then they consider themselves experts now. They're like, oh yeah, I made all this money off of this. I made all this money off of that. And now, you know, they think that they could just give everybody advice on everything. It's like, personally, like, no disrespect to you and no disrespect, you know, to anyone. I don't think there's anybody who's an expert truly in the Pokemon hobby. I think you can be an expert within certain things, like certain categories. There's no one who's a true expert, you know, in my opinion.
I mean, it depends how we define expert. You
Sure,
know,
sure.
I
Yeah,
was a therapist for 11 years and spent, you know, had multiple degrees. Am I an expert in that? You know, probably not. Are there any therapist experts? Are there any experts in anything? Like, we can get into those sorts of discussions, but there are people who are more experienced, who have more
Oh,
knowledge.
no, yeah.
There are people who know the data better. I actually find that more useful than,
I
like, I
agree.
know I had Swami on for like 2 hours to discuss this, and I'm like, here's the expert and here's the because the danger, right, is that if you're an expert, you don't have to say anything and people listen to you, and that's a problem. So,
That's
like,
huge. Yeah, that's a huge problem.
I want to, like, debate and give my opinions of why I think something is real. I don't want to just say, here's what's going to happen, you're welcome, I just, like, shot a bunch of knowledge into you when I didn't say anything, and I'm just an expert, so take my word for it, you know. And then if you don't, I get irritated because I'm an expert or something like that. So, you know, I think everyone, I agree with you, like, if you really want to have a nuanced discussion, you could analyze where you are more of an expert in the market, right? Like, we could say, like, here's where you really know, here's what you've really been studying. You know, there are people who watch this channel, there are people in the Discord, there are people who watch other channels like this who are, like, legit experts in maybe, like, E-series. They literally know, like, everything you could know. There isn't, like,
Right.
endless to know. You know what I mean? But the other part of that too is, like, because you're an expert, you don't actually know the print runs. You don't actually know how much is left. Like, there are things that an expert doesn't know, right? No expert.
Right. Yep.
You know, so that's where
there's information that there's a lot of information because the market is so dynamic that people will never know, which
Yeah.
exactly pretty much what you're saying. Like, and then also, I also, like, with, like, I like modern, like, and honestly, I started with vintage, obviously, you know, I've been collecting for, you know, 8-9 years, you know, so, but with vintage, you know, I started with that, and then obviously I got into modern, and, you know, modern is great. I think modern is really good, and I think it does have potential in the future. But, like you said, like, with people telling you to buy certain modern products and thinking they're just gonna keep exploding and keep going up and up and up, is like, we're in a different time. Like, we're in a different time period. We're in a higher print demand. I don't know if you've seen the article with Pokebeach. I think they said that they printed 9.6 billion, I think it was, Pokemon cards or something like that. Like, we're just in a different market. And there's so much, you know, that people underestimate with printing, you know, with the market, with the demand. Like, so you can't just go in blindly or assume, you know, and like, some people's research is basically like, this V box or this V Max box is going to go up in price because, let's go back to 2016 or 17. This box no one wanted to buy at one point, and now it's, you know, $100. But you can't, you know, compare both of those. You can't say that is going to be the exact reason. Like, I agree, history repeats, but you can't say that because that box went up, that this box is going to go up.
And some history repeats, like, some,
right, no, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so, like, there are certain things that can repeat, there's certain things that won't. I mean, I think you and I tend to be in agreement, and the way that I see this market, 3 factions or you know, and everyone's somewhere in the middle, obviously, but, you know, there are people who I talk to who are like, modern's doomed. Then there are people who I talk to who are like, modern's guaranteed. And then there are people who are more like, we don't know. And, like,
that's pretty much where I'm at.
Yeah. And anyone making strong opinions or ignoring the supply side, like, ignoring just all the things you listed, right? Ignoring that, they're making an extremely poor investment. And it's not because they won't make money. And this is the nuance, but it's because they don't understand what they're buying. Like, they don't, if you buy something and you don't understand the risk, it is a bad investment, even if you make money, from an intellectual perspective, right? Because, you know, it's more of like a gamble. You got lucky.
Gamble. It's 100% a gamble.
You know, you didn't even understand what you were doing and you got lucky. And people get lucky all the time. I get lucky. Like there have been plenty of things I bought that I probably didn't understand. I thought I understood, I probably didn't, and I ended up getting lucky because an influencer pushed it up or whatever. So it's that happens to everyone, but it's understanding the difference. And to your point, there are people who have made like 4x their money and they think they're like geniuses.
Top shot.
And it's like if you're a genius, say something, give me some nuance and say something smart about the market, right? Because you might be a genius. Like there might be some like really smart people out there, and I'm sure there are, but it's your people care way, in my opinion, people are way too focused on returns
and concerned about money,
and not nearly focused enough on how they made it, why they made it, and is it repeatable? And because 100%. A good investor it knows how to repeat things. They don't just 100%. They can get lucky, but they understand what happened and then they can replicate that, many times. It's a skill. So
see, like the thing with like you was going back with like modern, like so I watch Rudy a lot too, and something that I like that he said that I stick with is that he is, he's more fearful of missing out than the fear of losing money. So, I'm not saying I'm, being a superhero buying, 1,000, cases or, 50 cases of Astral Radiance or nothing like that. But sure, I'm going to buy like a case or two and I'm going to let it sit. If it goes up, it goes up. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I'm not saying don't buy modern product, but at the same time, you got people who are saying this is guaranteed case. It's going to go up, 10, 20%, or, this is going to go up. Like Evolving Skies is going to be the best, Sword and Shield set, or Brilliant Stars has Charizard in it. It's going to be the best Sword and Shield set. It has the trainer gallery. Like, yeah, these are good points. And you could be right, but you could also be wrong. And also depends on how long, these things are going to take to go up. And then another thing that I wanted to bring up is with grading. So I don't know who you grade with. I mean, I've only ever graded with PSA, always graded with PSA, never used any other company. And personally, I think Beckett's system is old and they need to update it. And CGC, I see the good things they're doing for like specific niche things, I think, because they give titles to certain cards that PSA won't. But as far as like holding value and down the stretch, like sure, CGC could, I can't tell the future, could become higher than PSA, value wise, but I think that'll take some time. But when I'm seeing like people at these conventions that, got all these new grading companies popping up, what happens when PSA drops their price back down to 15 and they're at the same price as these companies? These companies are going to die out, in my opinion. So like, I understand people. The problem I think it was is that people seen PSA closed and they was like, man, I have all these cards laying around. How can I get these in as quick as possible to flip these and get my money? And then I can put it into something else. So I think that's why a lot of people started going with CGC originally.
Yeah, I think we don't know how big the market is, and we don't know how big the market is going to sustain. And so if you are ignoring the risk that you just said, you don't understand what's happening, right? And that's grading with any of these companies. That being said, it's not a sure thing. Like there might be enough room for multiple companies. I think particularly companies in different countries that target specific,
I agree with that. Yeah.
Like there's going to be maybe niche markets or areas where grading companies specialize in. Maybe we specialize in modern slabs and we color match your slab to the case so that it looks nice, and it's more for collectors, not for big value and resale value. And if you can run a tight budget as a company doing that, that might be a profitable, very profitable endeavor. It's not going to be $1 billion company, but it could be a multi-million-dollar company. You know what I mean? So but trying to be PSA or compete on PSA's level or replace PSA, tough. Very, very difficult. I mean, really a huge uphill battle. So
I mean, extremely uphill. That's kind of like a new card. Like I see you like MetaZoo and Flesh and Blood and stuff like that as well. I mean, just like for them, that's an extreme uphill battle to even get to Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, or Magic level. Yep. And those are the three-headed, dragon or whatever you want to call it. Like those are the powerhouses, and those are going to always be hard to uphill battle. But there's definitely space for other games to exist for sure. I agree with that. It just depends on what they do. And you like MetaZoo. So what do you think about MetaZoo? I don't know if this is true or not, but supposedly I don't want to say bottleneck, but they kind of control the product with like releases of stuff like that, so that the product or the stuff doesn't get overprinted or out of control. So that kind of benefits the secondary market in a sense because there's not as much, supply out there. So when that supply does dry up, then, that stuff could be more valuable. What do you think about them doing that? Do you think that's a good business model? Or do you think because Flesh and Blood ran into that thing where they overprinted and Rudy found out about Monarch being like 175 or 150,000 print run, and I mean he invested crazy into that when he was buying cases. So like,
yeah, I mean every company does that, and every company knows that that's part like because they're collector speculators and they want that secondary market. They are looking. All of these companies are probably looking to create that, some more than others probably. I think it's necessary. I think it's part of what makes it fun and the chase. Like if you print so much product that everyone can get every card, then there's no chase.
Sure.
I get why people are uncomfortable with that, but like that's what you enjoy, and we're all subject to our human wanting to chase something, and the idea, like, it's an interesting discussion, like manufactured rarity. Obviously, we are in an era of manufactured rarity where it comes
Sports
to like
does it.
serialized numbers, all these type, But even like earlier on, like there were still inserts in sports. Like they still manufactured rarity. It just wasn't to this like crazy extent or these crazy prices.
Right.
So they've taken like this sort of psychological chase that has always been key to collecting, and they've like let's like push that as far as we possibly can go for as high as value as possible on these like national treasure boxes from sports, and selling brand new modern product right out of the gate, like MSRP $4,000 or whatever. It's like $2,000. I don't know, but it's an interesting era. It's clearly working. We don't know how long it's going to work or how long it's going to last. And the thing is like, if that's your core thing and you just do it every set and you do it multiple times, and if you have 1,000 one-of-one promos, there's 1,000 really. There isn't just like, and is everyone still going to get the one-of-one treatment? What about 10,000? At what point do you oversaturate the serialized market? And if all these other companies are doing it too, and none of us know, it's sort of an interesting experiment.
I love that you actually like look at sports and then kind of like put that into your thinking, because not saying that there's people in the Pokemon market that don't know sports or don't look at the sports market, but when you actually look at the sports market and then compare it to Pokemon, it's so crazy because obviously sports has manufactured rarity for a long time. And, now if you look, I don't know how much you pay attention to it, but, Panini puts out maybe 25, 30 sets a year of just different. There's like Score, there's Prism, there's Optic, there's Select, there's all these different things. And obviously, like you just said, every card has a one-of-one. There's a Joe Burrow one-of-one in this. There's a Joe Burrow one-of-one in insert. There's a Joe Burrow one-of-one auto for National Treasures, So, and then when you look at Pokemon doesn't even like really do that. I would say, I mean, we do got these multiple rarity levels now. And I think the numbers that came out, I don't even know if those are accurate numbers because of like sample size of opening. But like, when S.M. Pratt talks about, it takes, maybe 150. Well, I don't know what he said. I think it was like 1,000 or 10,000. I don't know what it was. It was a lot of booster boxes to complete the set or to pull specific cards. I mean, yeah, that's crazy when you look back at, base set when you could open up a box and pretty much pull the whole, set. But I just think it's interesting that you actually do look at sports, because then you look at Sports Pop Report. I mean, we talk about Charizard from CP Champions Path, or we look at certain Charizards that are like the most graded ever, and we're like, oh, they have like a pop of 10,000 or something. Go look up a Zion Williamson rookie PSA 10 and tell me how many PSA 10s those are, or how many have even been graded. Like, some people in the Pokemon market really don't realize the amount of grading and amount of product that got printed with sports. It's actually pretty nuts when you actually like look at the numbers and break stuff down.
Yeah. I mean, a plug for my Patreon. This is like the stuff we go over. One month I did a market cap video where I looked at like the market cap of like the Michael Jordan rookie card and compared it to like every key Pokemon card combined, and the Jordan was like 10 times the value of every key Pokemon together. Just one Jordan, rookie, obviously very key in one sport, right? So massive differences. Understanding older hobbies is the key. People who do not follow or know the market or know the ups and downs, they don't have much to give you, to be honest. They can give you a lot about, in my opinion, they can give you a lot of like historical and price knowledge and data specifically from this hobby, which is valuable. But if unless you put it in sort of a broader context of what like longer term collectibles have done and pop culture collectibles and these sort of longer, more established hobbies, and you should also like study books and study coins and study like antiques and firearms and understanding how things become historic and move from sort of the value being purely collectible, pop culture related to like historically important, and what items in Pokemon could maybe have some of that someday, given a time. Right. Like, it's people who don't do that don't really understand what they have fully or as fully as they could. But it's a passion thing. Like some people are like me, we're just
super passionate about it with the numbers. Yep.
Fascinating. Like it's interesting, right? Certainly the money is fun and enjoyable and interesting and it's part of it, but it's you have to love sort of the understanding the psychology, I think, of why people value things and why these things work, I think is what drives probably most of the people watching this channel and the interest,
I mean, I agree with you. Like, it's funny whenever, I'm sorry if I'm taking too much time, if we have more people in the line, but I thought it was hilarious when, I don't know if, there was multiple channels talking about it. I think you and Mason and Dan and a couple of people mentioned it, about Umbreon VMAX Altart PSA 10, we're like, how can people be, paying $700, $750, $650, $600 for, this card when, it's relatively new, it's Evolving Skies, you could crack those boxes on, release if you, had distributor pricing, which obviously not many people probably do, but there's more than you would think, especially with the 2021 that a lot of people got distributing. And then, pricing, even at $100 a box when people were ripping those. I mean, I opened a box, a case and I pulled it. So like my price point's super low. I send it in at the $50 mark. When y'all were talking about it, I actually sold it for $750 on eBay. And I just think that's hilarious. And y'all were talking about that. And I was actually in the moment doing it. It was just an opportunity where I'd seen where I could make money. And, what's crazy is the thing that I think about is not, so much, oh, it's Vaporeon, not Vaporeon, Umbreon, it's selling for this, but like whoever purchased it, because I don't know the person, obviously, but why did he purchase it? Like what you talk about, like why people make these decisions. Like, does he love Umbreon? Does he want complete all arts and 10s? Is he chasing that? There could be multiple reasons. Like S. Pratt said, at some point, there's going to be people that are going to go back to this, era, and they're going to probably try to collect every alt art, maybe every alt art in 10, maybe every alt art in 9. So I just think it's fascinating that, he looked at it and he was like, this is a good price and I'd be willing to buy it. And he bought it. So I just don't know what, what makes people buy that. But like I said, my point is that I'm interested, and I think it's fascinating with people's decision making. Why, people are making these decisions, or why someone makes a decision within the hobby, why they think something's investable, why they don't, stuff like that.
So a little knowledge can be dangerous is what I'll say. And there's a lot of people I've talked to who, like, let's think about it this way, pull rate really hard on that card. Okay. Booster box is very expensive. So, and I want that card, and I look and I say, well, it's only $750. I'm already getting it in a 10. I don't know how to look up pop reports. It's not something I'm really aware of, but 10s are really valuable. I've seen 10s on eBay go for like 10 times the value of 9s. They don't actually look up the pop reports. They don't know that it's like 700 to 50, 10s to 9s on a card like that.
It's an easy 10 for sure.
Yeah. So let's say they do that, right? But they've had two smart thoughts. They've said, I've seen 10s go for really high.
Yep.
Right. And they do the math and they're like, me pulling this card maybe costs like 15 grand or something, or even, some huge amount of money, and I can buy it outright for a PSA 10. And maybe they come from sports, or they come from somewhere where there's tons of base cards being bought for $1,000, and they don't watch channels like mine. They don't have any of the deeper knowledge. Now, I'm the most bullish of the people you talked about. Like, I'm the most bullish on that card because for my thing is like demand, man. If demand is high enough,
100%.
Eat that up and it can continue going up. Like, it's not impossible, but people who don't understand how easy that card is to grade in 10, don't understand how few have been graded probably of the total amount they've been graded, how much more products can come out, possible reprints, right? Like, once you know all that info, then it's like, well, probably should sell it because right now it's probably it could be at its highest price in the next 10 years right now.
Yeah, right.
Very, easily could be. It could also go to like 1,200, or it could stay at
could.
750. Like, this is the difference between people who predict prices and tell you versus people who give you information and knowledge and lay out all of the fundamentals of what's behind the card and then say you have to choose kind of
Right.
which one you think is going to happen. And it is, I mean, the massive amount of channels out there aren't going to do that, right? Or they're not going to have that discussion, and they're not thinking that way, and they don't have the knowledge to think that way, and they have some knowledge. I mean, I talked with people who paid $300-400 because they had like a regular holo from Vivid Voltage, $300 in a PSA 10 because it was a pop 1, and they looked up pops, but they didn't think that there could be endless amounts of those graded possibly at that price. Like, it didn't even occur to them.
Yep.
So when you get deeper into the hobby, and this is a smart person,
Mhm.
you have like it seems like for us, it would require an incredible level of like stupidity to not have action in our brain. But for someone who doesn't have the experience, they're actually a really smart person. They just had a little bit of knowledge, and that little bit of knowledge became dangerous. I saw the same thing in the sports card market rampant. There were people who were cracking, like, because Michael Jordan started to sell for a lot. I bought up a bunch of boxes with Michael Jordans in them to sell to these people who were like cracking them and paying ridiculous prices. And I knew it would tank the whole, like, this like Michael Jordan market. So like I bought a bunch of these like Looney Tunes boxes because like there's a Michael Jordan on every single card almost. And then I sold it to people, and those people broke it open and graded every single card from the set, all these commons, and they're worth nothing.
Yep.
But they didn't. And when I talked to them, they were like, well, it has a Michael Jordan, so it has to be expensive. I'll definitely make money. I'm going to make a huge amount of money. It's like some people did. The first to market, the people who 100%. Were in that did, right? It's the same thing with Cam and his Bob Saget, out of those $12 boxes. He made $1,000 on a card that you pull 4 of in a $12 box, right? A little bit of knowledge. He probably looked up. He said, oh, Bob Saget just died. It's a pop 1. I really like Bob Saget. Let's just buy it. But he didn't know how to do the research. He didn't know where to go. And this is why when people say things like no one knows anything, or everyone's on the same plane, or everyone, it's like, no,
not true.
There are people for this, and there are people who know what they're doing, and there are people who don't know what they're doing as much. And so, so hopefully those illustrations are, interesting. The vast majority of people who watch this channel are so engaged that they think a lot of this stuff is obvious when it's not. Let me put it that way.
Another thing I think that is very interesting that I would love to see in the future or down the road, like maybe 5 to 10 years, or who knows when Pokemon's going to stop doing alt arts, because it's a hit right now. People love alt arts. So I don't know how long they're going to, stretch that, because I mean, Gold Star stretched for pretty much the whole EX era, besides, I guess, Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald, and Sandstorm maybe. I think those were probably the 3. But every other set, I think, had Gold Stars pretty much. So at what point do they stop doing alt arts? And then, because they're so hard to pull, like we talk about how many boxes you have to open, sometimes you open a case, you might pull 1, you might pull 2, but more than likely you're probably going to pull 1. But at what point do people look at that? Yeah, obviously, we think about print, and we talk about like how much, Pokemon's printing, and then the demand of stuff. But if alt arts, are in demand, which they are right now, and they could be in the future, even more maybe in the future, they're hard to pull. Do you see those possibly having more value? And especially right now, there's some alt arts that are $20, $15. Some of them might be, there's some that's like the Hisuian, I don't know, I think it's like Lilligant, and then there's, that's like $20 probably, or like there's like the Beedrill when it came out. I think Beedrill was like 25 or something like that. But like, obviously not popular Pokemon, but I mean, like, as you stretch down the timeline, as Rudy always talks about, when you stretch that timeline, things start to look a lot different. So do you think that alt arts could be a thing in the future? Well, like, what do you think about that?
Sure. I mean, I don't think it's ridiculous to buy these for $20, $25. I think that my money is, I'm going to wait 3 years. People aren't going to like the alt arts as much. They're going to be bored. I'm going to wait to when I think the most product is opened. and the most is on the market, like I want to see like 150 copies of these on TCG Player. Like that would be the point where I would do targeted buyouts if you're really interested in these, to be completely honest. Like this is what I do. You grade a bunch, create a market for it, like patience, then very aggressive, but could I end up being wrong? And because they're so popular that then that never happens. Like there's never enough of them and they just get steadily bought out at these prices. 100%.
Yeah,
Is it
for sure.
that they all get bought up at these prices and it goes higher? And then in a few years, I have to pay $50, or $60. Yeah. And I will pay $50-$60. Like I'll take the hit because I think they're cool cards. And if the market establishes itself higher, I'm comfortable buying at those prices. But now is not a good time to buy Sword and Shield, in my opinion, particularly the second half of the sets, because of how new it is. Just the and I think the market could take a hit in the next year, even further, particularly on Modern. So
there's some people I watch that they talk about, like, obviously never pre-order pre-order singles, because obviously they're the highest that they're going to usually probably be on release and stuff like that. So like you said, most people that I watch, I don't know what everyone else watches, but most people do say you should buy a couple years down the road, because then eyes aren't on them, demand might not be there, people get like you said, bored. There's going to be a new hot thing out, there's going to be, who knows, I don't know, we went from Shining Legends into Hidden Fates, then we went to Baby Shinies, then we went to Amazing Rares, now we're at Radiant. So like there's always going to be new things that Pokemon's putting out. So like you said, like I agree, at later down the road is probably a better time to buy them. And when you go to buy singles, I don't know, for me, I'm so trained to like always look for PSA 10 quality or like the best center, because obviously with Modern, in my opinion, I think every card is relatively a PSA 9 or better based on centering. If you look, I try to make this argument with somebody that if you look at 100 cards, I'm willing to say that 80% or more are going to be 9+ quality outside of centering. Mm-hmm. And majority of them, I think, are going to have decent centering, where like there's that slight, little bit, but PSA, how they grade back is like 60-40. Mm-hmm. So there's even some new Modern cards that I've seen that are off-centered, in my opinion, and especially based off WotC, E-Series, EX era, and all that stuff, that grade 10s. So you just never know. But for what I'm saying is, when you go to buy raw, do you always look for the best quality that you can because you have potential to grade in the future? Or do you just buy a card raw because you like it?
Well, I have binder copies of things, I buy things because I like them. I also like 10s. So I also like to buy better looking cards to grade. I also like resale value if I ever want to sell it. So I also am always looking to like maximize profit or potential profit. So, one thing I want to say to people, is that going back to what we were talking about slightly before, and then I am going to bring, I think, David on next.
Yeah. I've been on here a while.
No, it's been phenomenal. It's been great. Is that, how many of you guys who really liked Hidden Fates, do you like Hidden Fates more now or 2 years ago? Like, truthfully.
I would say 2 years ago that people liked it more.
I would guess most people would say I liked it. If I'm being honest, I was more excited about it. I had more emotion around it 2 years ago. Maybe you still like it as much, but you don't have the same sort of like wanting to get it, or you already have it, or the majority of people who wanted it already had it because they printed enough.
Yeah.
Same thing will happen with the alt arts guys. So it very, very, very likely. And they're going to come out with something cool in the next generation where that's also going to make that happen. And people hear that is like, but the alt arts are sick. And it's like, no, that's not what we're talking about. Like Hidden Fates was sick. Like every generation is sick. Like I love every generation of Pokemon cards I'm collecting in. I like Sun and Moon. People don't like Sun and Moon anymore. I really like Sun and Moon, so now, are there going to be some generations that are more popular forever? Yes. And that I agree with, right? Like there's going to be like alt arts might be the thing that's more popular. Like alt arts might forever be more popular than Rainbow Rares, like from Sun and Moon, right? Like it's possible.
100%.
I don't know. But understanding the simple psychology of like when things are 2 years old, most people who wanted them already have them if Pokemon printed enough. There's still more and more being opened and sold on the market as people get doubles. And people have been exposed to it for a couple of years. So, all right. Any last minute comments or
not just that, it's cool to finally get on here.
yeah, man.
Glad that you threw out the idea of jumping. I mean, I remember I think this is your second time doing this.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And usually I haven't been popping in on lives or nothing like that. I've always been in the shadows. I don't want to say it like that, but I've been in the shadows for a long time.
Sure.
I have on my YouTube, like technically if people look up Pokemon Gym Hero, it says I have a YouTube, but I haven't posted a video in, I don't know, 5-6 years. But I have like a video where I pull a Skyridge Charizard from when I bought a Skyridge pack for $80 off of Facebook.
That's cool.
I still have that card, PSA 10. I graded it.
Awesome.
I have some subs on there, stuff like that. But I'm not trying to promote my channel because I don't even care about my channel. But
oh no, please.
But yeah, like I said, I've always been in the shadows, and now I've been trying to come more onto this I guess lives to do more discussions because I see Dan, I see what's his name, Pokemon Knowledge. I see a lot of people do these lives and they jump in. A lot of people talk. It's just cool to pick brains and talk about things because obviously everyone disagrees, everyone agrees with certain things, and like I said, I like to think more critically and the reasoning of why people do certain things, or looking at, similar to you, looking at data and stuff like that. I don't think I dive as deep as you because I mean you do like a whole presentation, you said, for your Patreon and stuff, so you're obligated to do that stuff, like you owe them that. So I'm not doing stuff like that, but I mean I'm constantly checking stuff every day. I'm constantly looking for stuff to buy because I actually don't work like this. I'm one of those, if you want to put me in a category, I'm one of those that quit my job, as well as like Mason, not Mason, Dan and Nick, Catch 'em All Collectibles and Old School Pokemon. So I fall in that category. If you want to say, oh, you're one of the people that quit your job and jumped in Pokemon, but mind you, I was working 5-6 years at a high-end restaurant before I did that, and I was gathering my collection. And in 2015 and 16, I mean, you could find stuff on eBay like this: new listing, gold star here, gold star there. And everything was relatively near mint to mint because people weren't grading like they were now. And, so grading just exploded. But I appreciate you letting me come on, man. It's, good conversation. So I'll be watching still to see the next person come on. And I'm
absolutely, dude.
What else talking about.
That's the whole point of this, is to introduce everyone to, like, because there's so many people that are there are lots of people that are exactly like me who never started a channel, you know? So it's like the idea of this is to just introduce more and more people who are passionate about this and knowledgeable, or even not that knowledgeable, just want to share. I mean, that's cool too. Like I want to hear from everyone at all levels. And that is the ultimate, point of this channel. So this is like my favorite thing that I've been able to accomplish so far is to do this. This is sort of like what everything was like working up to. So hopefully people like it.
I don't want to say it like that, but I think this might be the most interesting thing or best thing on your channel, in my opinion, because you just get to bring so many new faces on, so many new opinions, so many new, ideas or thoughts. Yeah. It just gets everybody talking. Everyone can be engaged. So I like that more than, just one person, going live, or one person, having a YouTube channel where they express their thoughts all the time. I think it's good to hear what everyone else has to say because obviously, the person making the YouTube video isn't always right.
Absolutely. And I hope as time goes on, more people will hear about this, and people from other communities with maybe more different perspectives and other sorts of things will come and want to, and be willing to share and talk about it, because the goal is not to have, I know you're not, but the goal is not to, like, I love that people from the Patreon and Discord are coming in, right? But the goal is not to just do that. The goal is to have a conversation with the whole adult, like, Pokemon collector community. And so for people here too, like, and this is not to like promote their channel, but just like if people can tell people, or you run into people who want to debate, who have interesting things to say, like, let them know that we're doing this, because this will only be as good if we can like get outside bubbles and and I'm, as long as people are respectful and don't come in here and like, yell at me,
No.
Like, I will only take so much abuse there before I kick you. But that, I'm down to talk to literally anyone, like 100%. Anyone, no matter what you think. So, all right, man. Thank you.
All right, bro. Take care.
Take it easy. All right. Round two. What's up, David?
Hey, how's it going?
There you go.
I
Good,
am
man.
so sorry to you and to the chat and everyone. I don't know what happened.
It's all good. Thank you for waiting. Sorry, we got into a long convo there.
Yeah, no, it's all good. It was interesting to listen. As you mentioned, there's a lot of people who contributes in so many different ways that we might miss if they don't get in the chance to talk like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of which,
Uh,
before we get started, David, there is no
Yes.
one else online right now. So if someone wants to come on next, I'm probably going to go for another 30 minutes or so would be ideal. So if anyone wants to jump on, respond to anything we've talked about, come up with a new topic after David, the line's open just to give that a shout out. And you can click, there's the link in the description. Okay. And then you'll be put in a waiting room area. And then once David and I are done talking, I'll bring you on. Okay. Welcome, David. Welcome to the channel. What's on your mind today?
Thank you. So I've been thinking a lot about the binaries in the hobby, in the Pokemon hobby. And so I study anthropology. I'm doing my master's. And a big thing about being in my class right now is that we have people from all over the world. And so it's interesting because my collection is based mainly on like cards or slabs with different languages. And I'm noticing that people pay an interest in it when the language matches their native tongue. And I was just thinking that some of your thoughts regarding non-Japanese and non-English cards, and just like cards from different languages, either as, you know, I guess it's up to people for the personal collection, but maybe more of a speculative when it comes to like the future, and why do you think that people are so maybe that's too much of a general statement, but so hesitant in collecting something that isn't Japanese or English?
It's a really good question. I'm part of what I think about is how would you mind, David, just turning down the volume a little bit in your earbuds? I'm getting a little feedback of me talking. Is that cool?
Is it better?
Yeah, I think that's good. Thank you.
Perfect.
Yeah, sort of like Magic, like what Magic has done with some of those like Italian, cards I see out there. It's interesting. Yu-Gi-Oh is interesting, seeing what they're doing with their different variations, and even like English product, but that was like printed and distributed in other places, not having the same sort of value. Yeah, collecting's a weird thing, and it's so much. The honest truth is, so much of it is about going with the herd and sort of like what the herd decides is good. And then we all kind of like pile in and say, oh, that's what's good. Okay, it's all good. And oftentimes it can only take a slight thing like, oh, the English is good because we all speak English and we want to read the cards, or the that's what we collected as a kid and this other stuff isn't, so it's not good. Or it's weird because there's only 5 cards in the pack instead of our usual 10, or it's different, or and I think that combined with lots and lots of people feeling those ways, and then lots of influencers and everyone kind of not showing, like if there was like a big like multi-language collectors who had big channels and showed them a lot. I mean, one thing that was interesting was like a lot of like some of that like EX Ruby Sapphire, like some of the like middle generation, the heart, I forget which set it was, but Heart Soul Silver, I think it was just the base of that. I saw influencers open some of that on their channels, and then I saw a lot of that stuff like disappear from eBay, like people buying that stuff up. Some of it is just people learning that there's that stuff out there, or like the EX Legend Maker, like Chinese. Like some of it's just learning that stuff is out there, and then markets get built around it. But as far as like, I wouldn't expect most native English speakers to like value the German over the English, because I just don't know why they would. But maybe they should value it more than they do, or over time it could close the gap. Like if more influencers started collecting it and like gave it like, this is a legit investment and like really good, could it close the gap over time? Probably. I think it probably has closed the gap on some things, I mean, I've seen some German stuff sell for good amounts. Now, I also think there are a number of German collectors who have been buying that stuff up. You also have people who are PSA 10 collectors who are like completionists who want every language. And so you're seeing people buy the 10s. But again, the more niche something is, the more just the top of it is probably going to go up, because there isn't going to be like enough deep interest for like 8s, you know, outside of maybe like a first edition Charizard or some of the first edition base, or like a Shining card. Like I've seen some like German Shining cards and German Crystal cards sell for quite a bit, even in slightly lower grades. But like your regular holo or like your common uncommon, probably not, or it's going to take a humongous amount of time and interest for those to go up in value. So those are some thoughts in no particular order, kind of a ramble at you, you know, about those markets. And just like any market, you know, markets get started by both the underlying sort of fundamentals of it, you know, and in this case, the fundamentals are weaker because it's not your native language and it's not the original language like Japanese. You know, people sort of want the original language and then want their own language, you know, and but with more eyes on it, people knowing that it exists, and then also PSA grading it, you know, PSA, you know, and some of these grading card companies, you know, only ever grading first edition base in other languages and not grading, you know, the other stuff for forever. That stuff too, you know, hurts that market, you know, but over time there could be more exposure. And then if you're dealing in those specific markets, I've heard like stuff about like that it's really that Pokemon's like had a resurgence in like Brazil. I was hearing recently, and like, you know, it's like Portuguese, you know, it's like maybe specific languages. If you know where the product is and you can source it, there's probably some like really good businesses that could be started just dealing with Portuguese, you know, just dealing with German, you know, these types of things. It's just not an area where I have the connections or know, and then it's just you sitting down doing the math and figuring that out. So I just talked a lot at you. What do you think about that?
That's great. That's great. No, and I agree with you. And it makes me think that even like you said, with the people that collect German cards, like, or people that are from Italy that collects Italian cards, and it's just maybe it, or French speaking people collecting cards in French, but so maybe eventually, and the more, you know, bigger PokeTubers that talks about it, you're right, maybe with more eyes on it. I just picked up a couple of booster packs, XY booster packs in Russian, just to have something. And even though PSA doesn't grade it, I think it's pretty cool having something from like different parts of the world. And it's probably just might just be throwing money away, but I don't know, something for my personal collection, having something from like different regions of the world just adds a little bit of flavor to my own collection, which I guess
and I think if you saw like some of these big YouTubers like, you know, Leonhard, Unlisted Leaf, these people like start to show collections filled with, you know, little bits of everything of different languages and present it in a cool way, you know, if not that much of that stuff is printed, you could definitely see it go up in value, you know, for sure. Do I think that's going to happen? Not so sure. I mean, you know, these guys, like, I don't know how well that video would do. So there's, you know, for these guys, a lot of it is like what video is going to do well.
Yeah.
And so why show Russian product or world collection if I'm only going to get like 60,000 views, whereas a normal video gets 200,000 views, you know? So there's, particularly if that's kind of difficult to put together, and, you know, so yeah, but
sure. Yeah.
It's interesting. I mean, another thing I think about too is like maybe grading card companies start in these countries. You know, if Pokemon, I don't know about Russia, but if Pokemon continues to become more popular in Europe and some places there, and maybe even in South America, like, do the grading card companies start that grade specifically that language in that language, and then people in that language like collecting that, or you know, there will always be small niche markets. And it will require Pokemon to remain extremely strong and huge, but that doesn't mean that there aren't like real businesses that could be created just on a smaller scale.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. It might be, if I have time to ask one more question.
Go for it. Yeah.
It deviates quite a bit from the previous topic, but you've been talking or mentioning briefly about, or bits and pieces at least, about the future that you would like to have when it comes to putting together a museum
Mhm.
What are some of the things that you, because in the previous person that came on, uh, you mentioned a little bit about when it transitions from just a pop culture hobby into some historical, when it becomes historical. What are some of these historical things? Are these some of the things that you imagine that will be in the future museum of Pokenomics? And
Mhm.
what would make that transition from pop culture to historical?
So there definitely is no firm definition of like what's historical, what's not historical, because
Right.
like there are historical sales happening. They're like
Yeah.
everything is historical. Everything that happened in the past technically is historical.
Right.
But like
Fair.
when something's historically significant, that's a term that's thrown out there often as a sales pitch to get someone to
Okay.
pay really high value for something, whether it's a pop culture collectible or like a presidential item or whatever. But like when we say something's historical, it means that it's important, like something about it, some feature of it is important for society, for humans, something like that. And I would say, the Pokemon company's success and the Pokemon card game success and TCG and all of these other TCGs that are being created right now, like there's a historic thing happening right now. Now, is it on the level of like, something, some war or some global economic thing? Like probably definitely not, and probably never will be. So there's like various degrees of like historical importance, but I think the Pokemon company being the largest pop culture company of all time, the most successful of all time, in terms of financially the biggest of all time, like that's historical. I mean,
Right.
I think pop culture, I think like these stories and these narratives and these video games and these merchandise and these cards, like all the things that it's creating and the brand, like it's historical. I think,
Right.
these things are historically important, what they're achieving as a business.
Right.
Are any individual cards historical? I mean, historical for a more minor scale, like I love within the hobby. Like I like the first ever champion stamp card or the first ever trophy card or some of the first ever art competition cards, like marks of historic events. Like each era like has different card, so like in a museum, I would want to show all of the history of Pokemon cards and we get a lot more niche. But if you were to go on the street and ask someone, was Abraham Lincoln, was a speech that he gave or him signing, was that historical? Almost everyone would say yes. If you went on the street and you asked people, is this Pokemon card historically important? You might have like 1 out of 10,000 people say yes. So you know what I mean? So there's varying degrees. So there's going to be some stuff that's so has such an impact on human beings, like the computer, like that it's like it's historic for human society, and then there's going to be some stuff that it doesn't reach that level, but there's some degree of kind of like importance since that time. That's how I would think of it.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. And it's nice to hear that sort of maybe the timeline and the sort of the idea of Pokemon as it has progressed. Because I agree with you. I think that would be really cool to go to. And I mean, I'm the second Swede that's come on today, and it would be kind of cool to go in from Scandinavia and back to the States and just walk around in a place like that, because I think it adds to learn, but also to just connect from different parts of the world. So
yeah, I want to create a place where people can go and meet people and have an experience. Like that's the goal. And by the way, like a bunch of people, I won't list their names, like a bunch of people who have large collections and are major people, like they're on board with doing a museum someday. Like there's a lot of people who've expressed interest to me. So hopefully we make it happen eventually. For me, it's just about creating events and meeting places where you can go with other like-minded people who love the same stuff as you, and you can just learn, but also just like hang out. And like that would just be super fun. Now doing something like that is very expensive and it makes no money. So, it's one of these things of like, it's a dream to some extent, but like hopefully it'll become a reality, someday. So we'll have to see. But
yeah, that would be awesome.
In the meantime, come to Collecticons, because that's where a lot of us are going at the moment. And, we'll hopefully create other things in the future.
I was planning to go back to the States to pursue my PhD once I'm done, and I'm using it only as a decoy so I can be closer to Collecticons.
Oh, so, yeah. It's all about Pokemon.
It's all about Pokemon. Yeah, and thank you again for being so patient with me, and I really appreciate that.
Thanks for coming on, David. Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
and just can I say one last thing?
Please.
Just I've been watching your videos for quite some time, and one thing that's been a constant thing that I've really appreciated is just your rhetoric. I don't know if people give you that compliment a lot, but just the way that you talk, and some people think there might be an issue that you're sort of going in between. But I really appreciate sort of the nuances and the rhetoric and how you just the way you talk about things. It's just really hits home. So yeah.
I basically I'm an external processor. So I basically, instead of like thinking about these things in my head, I'm thinking live on camera. So that's, that's how a lot of us think, right? And I think a lot of people, there are a lot of people in this chat who think very similarly to me. I think that's why we're here, and they like, well, it could be this, but it could be this, but it could be this, versus like, there's some people who really like, it's this. Just tell me, and they don't like the nuance or uncomfortable with the nuance, or they don't understand. Frankly, they don't understand nuance. They don't like their brains don't. Their brains are more black and white.
Yeah.
And but yeah, but I, it's why I'm a philosophical sort of guy, and that's part of it is sort of those long 2-hour conversations where maybe you moved an inch, but it's fun and enjoyable, and I think over time progress is made. I feel like I'm more, much more knowledgeable now than I was 2-3 years ago. I feel like I've learned a lot these past 2-3 years in the hobby, and hopefully, that will continue and continue for everyone,
For sure. And I mean, as studying anthropology, very rarely is something objectively or like universally true. We do culture relativism quite a lot. So listening to people's perspectives and seeing nuances is essentially all we do. So maybe that's why I appreciate it so much when I watch someone that sort of, like you said, thinks in a similar way. So,
yeah. It's good to be around people who think like you, it's comforting.
Right.
But the reality, and I do, and I say this and I really do want it, even though it's frustrating and difficult at times, but it's like, my goal is also to bring people who think very differently, who talk differently, who, are maybe going to be more that rigid. And, I'm sure I'll be irritated with them and they'll be irritated with me, but like, it's important to like do that and continue to come back to it. So, thank you, David. Appreciate you.
Appreciate it. Have a good night.
You too. All right. So I think if anyone wants to jump on, we have one more in the queue. If anyone wants to come on who really has something burning, feel free to jump on. We'll do 2 more. Otherwise, I'm probably going to end it with this one. But if you come on in sort of the next 5 minutes or so, we can do 2 more conversations. Otherwise, I think I'll be ending with this one. But we'll do plenty more of these every other week, maybe every week if people want them, but maybe every other week is better. And as I said before, like, encourage other people to come on, like people that you've met in the hobby, people from other channels, people, influencers can come on, like anyone can come on to these. Okay. All right. Hey there, Chevels. How we doing?
Good.
We got a fitting person to end it today. Definitely someone who I think I catch you in most streams, most chats. It's good to see you.
Good to see you too. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
So, knowing there was no one in line, I thought about a little game to do. I don't know if you're in for a challenge.
Go for it.
All right. So I picked out 5 slabs, and
Okay.
I want to have your honest opinion. Like, what comes to your mind? Are those bags? Do you buy those?
Okay.
Strengths and flaws. So let's go.
Okay. Do you want me to like give my opinion one by one as we go through? What do you think?
Yeah.
So what's that card going for right now? Do you know?
I would guess somewhere between like 70, 80 maybe in American.
Yeah. So, interestingly, the niche Japanese stuff like that, like your Top Zone, your 1996 Bandai, which is what that is for people who don't know. Is that the red or the green? I didn't really see it. The red one. Yeah. the 1996 Bandai, which is what that is for people to know, and then the 1997 Card Ass Monster. I think of those three things as together, as they tend to be the three most popular. They're the most that have been graded the longest, and they're all from that like first chunk. And then you have sort of like the Meiji, like 98, 99. Some of that stuff's really expensive, but kind of as like the next chunk. And then starting to also include like second gen Pokemon, whereas these sets are all just first gen.
Yeah.
I think like I like that card. I think that it's a reasonable card for that price. I'm getting a lot of interest right now on niche Japanese stuff, which I think I've sold 3 complete sets of like, and I have someone who reached out to me today who wants another complete set, but I sold 1 at CollectCon and I sold 2 before. People just reaching out to me for complete sets of like 97 right now.
In like near mint condition or?
No, graded, like 8s, 9s, 10s.
Okay.
I don't sell any 10s, so I keep all 10s, but I have been selling some 8s and 9s. And I've been selling them at around market. There aren't a lot of these cards listed, and there aren't that many of them selling from what I've been seeing in high grade recently. Particularly the 97 is the one that I follow the most out of the 3 of these because it's the one I've been most actively selling, but I think of them as all similar. Maybe the 96 has been selling more. I don't know if you've been following the 96.
Well, the 97 has the best artworks, I think. The most original ones.
I like the 97 the best, then the 95, then the 96. Now, it's not really 95, but I call it 95 because it's just what PSA labels it so everyone can know what we're talking about. But, a lot of people say, and people will really passionately say, these are the first ever Pokemon cards here, this 96 Bandai. This is the first ever Gengar right here, right? So, I think I would say it's a buy for a collector. I think it's cool. It's not a buy for like a flipper reseller. I think these things are too niche. It doesn't really make sense in the short term. As sort of like a long-term investment collector, if you really like it, I think it's cool. That's what I would say. Again, in this market, like I'm wanting to get deals. I would probably wait to try and buy this in an auction or buy it. I would try to buy the whole collection at once for like 70% or something, 80%, but it would be a buy.
And when we consider the slab it's in, what's your opinion?
Doesn't bother me that much. I you can always crack it. I would want to look over to the card. That would be more. And the only issue about buying that online is that it's really hard to see damage on those unless you shine them in the light. Like you can have a card that looks perfect that's like a 1 because as soon as you shine it, it's got like insane scratches all over it. So if you're buying those online, be very careful. Make sure you get pictures if you're buying raw. Yeah, I would say doesn't bother me that much. I would probably want to pay PSA 7 prices ideally for that. And okay. That's probably what the market is roughly, PSA 8, PSA 7 for that. I've been getting CGC 8.5s for like the prices of PSA 7s in auctions occasionally. So that's sort of.
You must be careful for those. You must be careful because we saw some 8.5s with indents and some pretty scratched up the hollows. So.
Yep, buy the card and the grade, not just the grade. So for sure.
All right, let's go with the next one.
Yeah, what do you think? You have to answer too.
Oh. Well, I mean, I mainly agree about like this must be hard to resell for a flipper. I don't think it's a good buy. Me personally, it's really like the back of the card I like.
Yeah.
It's like we don't see a lot of like human Pokemon interactions like this that are scary in the hobby. So to me, this one stands out a bit. But Cardass, I think there are a lot of it out there still. Maybe you can find on Bai, but in mint condition, it's not that easy to find because they get scratched pretty easily. So that would be more or less my opinion.
Yes, I agree. You can still find complete sets of these, but they're all garbage. Like, finding mint stuff is really hard.
All right, if you want to see the next one. Oh.
Got a little first edition Dark Scizor from Neo Destiny. Very nice. Beautiful card, beautiful art. I love this card. You know, I mean, I'm a little bit of like a first appearance person. So like, you know, so when I'm paying like really high amounts for like some of the Neo Hollows, often I go for Neo Discovery or Neo Genesis when it's the same Pokemon in its first ever appearance, if I can get it for around the same price. But there are some arts in Neo Destiny that are just so cool that it evens it out for me. And it's like, you know, it's a dark first ever dark scissor. You know, it's cool if they did dark. I think the light Pokemon in particular are cool because they never did light anywhere else. So for me, I just think that's a particularly neat thing that they did light Pokemon in that set. I love the light Arcanine. It's like probably my favorite card from that set.
Yeah, it's nice.
So those are always a buy if you can get them at a good price. Those are never not going to be a buy. It's just about being patient, trying to get good value. You know, it always goes back to it's unnecessary for me to say, because it's like, yeah, obviously always try to get things in auction and try to buy things in a bundle. It'll be when you get the cheapest value. But like putting all that aside, because that's going to be true for every single card here today, that's a buy.
All right. Yeah, it is for me too. It's one of my favorite Pokemons, and I think the pops are not rising so fast on those, on PSA or wherever. And when it comes to Beckett's, like any grading company, you must check the card. This one has a bit of silvering, but it's still like the hollow is unscratched. So yeah.
Yeah, and Beckett, again, buy the card in the grade. When you're going for these other grading companies, you just got to be really careful with the card to make sure that it's in good condition. But I like buying other companies if I can get them at, a decent discount off of PSA.
Yeah. All right, let's go with the next one. I'm interested in your answer.
Less enthusiastic about that versus the Dark Scizor. But I like it. I sold a few recently. I have a lot of those. Those were all like $10, $15 before the boom. Now they're like $160 to $200, a lot of them, for like the less popular Pokemon. And I just think that like they're a niche thing that I think we're so undervalued. If there was like no market for it, and now they're definitely a buy compared to like a lot of things in this hobby. But of those three things, like I'm a little bit more interested in like the unlimited, obviously, but Expedition you're not going to find. But buying some unlimited hollows of Japanese, I think is kind of an interesting play, particularly like middle generation due to the rarity. I would still buy that. I mean, if you could get that like below 150, that's a buy. I just think it's probably more like towards 200. So I don't know. I don't know what. Did you buy that recently, or
Yeah, this one I bought it like I bought a couple at the same time, so I got a discount, like a bulk discount a bit.
Yeah.
So I think it was a good purchase for that matter. But yeah, I was just curious about E-series and Japanese in general. Like, how do you differentiate Expedition to the others? And
it's not a super popular Pokemon. It's from the third most popular of the three sets. It's a regular hollow. It's first edition. Of course, there are basically no unlimited expeditions. You're not going to find unlimited, but it's a niche within a niche. I personally love it though. Like, I would own 100 of those and be extremely happy. So like, I love that stuff. And I love all the hollows from those sets. So for me, it's like a definite buy. It's just when we talk purely market, I would probably lean towards paying like a little bit more for, either stay in like Skyridge for like the less popular Pokemon, or pay a little bit more for some of the key Pokemon. Probably. It's why I sold, I also made a 16 times profit on it. So that's part of why I sold some. But I can tell you that like the fact that those are like 160, 170, and you can buy like not even the best alt arts for 160, 170 in PSA 10, like, but again, like those alt arts might be a better investment long-term, because these are just too niche. I don't get it really, because I just think these are really cool. And the booster boxes are so rare and so expensive, but those are some of my rambled thoughts. Yeah. What do you think?
No, I agree on this part. I think it's likely that, like you said, like alt arts will be more valuable than bills. but those are rarer and like they look so nice. If you have a bunch of those and you stack them one next to each other, like I don't know. When I was a kid, those borders they would like turn me off, but nowadays it's like the totally opposite. And also, I think this era has some of the best artworks, like you know, the Blastoise, the Hypno of Aquapolis, you know, not even counting the crystals. Some of those artworks are like they never the Feraligatr. I mean, they never do like this kind of realistic
half in water, half above water cards like the Blastoise and the Feraligatr. Yeah, super interesting.
They're kind of scary too. Like they don't do cards like this.
Yeah, so many great arts, and the commons and uncommons too. Like phenomenal in some of these sets. Like they created like a whole world, and you know, the identity of those sets. Like it's just they're just gorgeous. I agree with you.
All right, let's go with the next one.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what you're paying. You know, I think if you're buying that for like $20, goodbye. You know, $40. I think there's better stuff, honestly. But I think the price of like 20, you know, $20 or so there, maybe $25, maybe even $30. That's what those are going for in auction, you know, around that.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
a buy, but like none of these are like, you know, I would say that probably the most depressed market right now is like first edition base, jungle, and fossil, and rocket, and like and it's not even Neo hasn't gone down as much. You know, it's like exactly what we talked about, right? It's like the rare stuff helped, the less rare stuff didn't. You know, so I'm targeting the less rare stuff that still is extremely popular right now. But all of these are a buy. Like every card you've showed me is like a great card that I would buy at the right price.
And if I showed you the same card but in reverse holo, do you like it more, or is it the same for you?
It depends on the set. Probably the same for the most part.
Even the stamped ones, like Legend Maker? Or...
Yeah, probably around the same. I think that, yeah, I'm going to say the same for me.
All right. Yeah, to me, I mean, I've been looking at this era in general, and I think a lot of those cards are undervalued. I mean, there are some first appearances that they go unnoticed on auction. Once in a while, you can find one that falls between the cracks like this. So, and some of the artworks, I mean, for me, like, I wasn't there back in the days in the hobby when those were released. So you can discover a lot of nice artworks, especially with the reverse holos. Like some of the comments, they become incredible. So I wanted to end this with a little curveball and see how you react. Let's go.
Let's see. Greatest card in the game. Easy. You know, I picked up quite a few of those. I think for me, like $20-ish for a PSA 10 is like seems good. You know, 25 maybe. I think market's more though around like 40 to 45 to 50 generally. You know, I was able to in auction and like a few PWCC auctions and other places pick them in the 20s. I think I bought one in the low 30s a few months ago. So everything's a buy at the right price. You know, so it's the issue with those, so much supply, just so much supply. And now obviously the Charmander is a lot less than some of the other ones that are, because like more people just want that one. There are a lot of the other ones, like the only people who want it are collecting the entire set, where there's a lot of people who like just are buying that one or collecting that one. So you don't, you know, I bet if you went on to TCG Player, you'd probably see like 150 to 200 of most of them being, you know, up for sale, and maybe only 50 of that one or 100 of that one or so. So, yeah, it's a beautiful card. It's a good card. I like the baby shinies, but there's so many baby shinies, and there's still a lot of hidden fates. You know, there's no rush. There's no rush to buy any of that. That's what I would say. What do you think?
Well, I wanted to have your opinion because, like, from when I talk to people about like PokeTubers in the hobby, like the most criticism I get for to the targeted towards you comes when you said you bought a bunch of baby shinies. So I don't know what you think about that. Like,
I think that if I sold all my baby shinies right now, I would make money. Like, so, now how long would it take me to sell them? I could start listing them right now. I'd probably double my money because of my price point on them, So I think that people who believe that don't actually sell and don't actually haven't actually tried it or done it. I think in terms of the upside on them, I think that I may have bought too many too early.
Okay. You wish you paid less for a bunch of them, but generally you did well.
No, I couldn't. They'll never be cheaper than I bought them for. Like I'm buying them at 76 cents because I bought 1,000 of them off of TCG Player when it was a 20%, bucks back, and I went through and filled out my entire cart and bought them. So I think my price average was around that on them.
The raw ones.
The raw ones for raw. And then for graded, I bought some 10s at $20 that I would lose money on now. Like if I were to sell them now, I wouldn't lose it in a buy it now. Like a buy it now, if I listed all of those for probably like $25 to $30 and I sold them all, it would be a lot of work for making almost nothing. The way I think about this stuff is, for me, my thinking was Hidden Fates has been out for a while. I don't think nearly as much of it's being opened. And I think that now is a good time to stock up on a bunch of them with the idea of making, $5 to $10 on each card when I grade them and then sell them for years.
It's a long-term play.
Yeah. I mean, again, I think I said it in one video. I think people are way overthinking it. And again, it's all about price point that you're paying it. So, and anyone who thinks that like baby shinies can't be like $50 a card or $25 to $50 a card, like they can be.
Even with the volume of supply we have?
Yeah. There's a lot less of these than amazing rares. Very likely. Now it's going to depend on the amount printed, because there could be a lot more Hidden Fates printed than like Vivid Voltage, for example. But you have to understand there's a ton of baby shinies. So each individual one is much harder to pull. So exactly. If you're stocking up on just the Charmanders or the key ones like Lucario, like these are shiny Pokemon of some of the best, of some of fan favorites. Like I mean, Ray sold a $60 one at Collecticon. I mean, again, like
a Charmander?
Yeah, these things sell. Like you just put them out in the case and they'll sell. So a lot of people have opinions who don't sell. And so, yeah. So, but do I think that it's like a freaking genius play that I'm going to make a ton of money on? Probably not. It was something that I mentioned in a video because people were constantly saying that I never buy anything cheap.
Okay.
And it was like, here's an example of like something that anyone can do for any amount of money. You could just buy 10 of them. You could just buy 15 of them, I
didn't even know the origin. I just know that here and there is like it became a meme with time. Like
it's fine.
People can baby shinies.
Can meme the one thing, and we'll see. We'll see. I wish that I had bought less because I have more than I want right now. I'm not buying any more. Actually, I still buy them occasionally when I get a really good deal, but I don't need any more. I have enough.
And when you talk about regrets, like during those past 2 years, like, do you have any other like purchases that you regret? Or I know we all regret not buying more at certain times with what happened. Like if you go like more in the past, but are there some things you like that became bags to you or?
Sorry, anything that I've like lost money on specifically or
that just you're like, why did I buy this?
No, I've been extremely disciplined with Pokemon. From the first time I bought my first card, like I've been researching just the way that I do now. So like I was lucky when I came in. And so everything that I was able to buy, everything that I buy, I like, first of all. So I don't have like that worry or that issue. And then everything that I bought has gone up in value, because of the time in which I bought it. The only cards that I might not be able to make money on are some of those baby shinies and a bunch of the rainbow rares that I bought. But I bought all of that in the last few months. So, and I wasn't planning on flipping it in 3 months. So,
and you said in Pokemon, is it because you thought about something else in another hobby, maybe, or
in other hobbies?
Yeah.
I mean, I bought too many like MetaZoo boxes for Wilderness at like 120. I think I bought a couple at 150, and then I bought a few at I bought them to open to enjoy. Like I didn't buy them as like this is a smart investor speculator. I bought them because I wanted to open them, and I was worried that they were going to go to $200 potentially. Like even though there's double the print, I shouldn't have been. But there was double the print of Nightfall. Nightfall went to $200 from $150 MSRP to $200, and I was worried that Wilderness might do the same thing, particularly because there was news that like there was going to be like gold cards and other sorts of like, and the first like numbered actually serialized card, like, so I was
some
worried.
new rarities? Yeah.
So as a collector, I just wanted to make sure I got them at 150, and so I bought 5. I opened all 5. Actually, I think I have one left somewhere back there. It's behind them, but and I could have paid like 80 or something, or like 85 or 90 for them. And I also like didn't need to open so many because I didn't like the set that much. I liked Nightfall better. I had more fun opening Nightfall. And so, but like, I don't really regret that. It's fine. But like, that would be like the mild thing that comes to my head. And then I probably am overpaying a little on sports right now for some autographs, but it's for a personal collection. And I'm buying pretty cheap, but I could probably, if I went to the National, which I'm planning on going to, I might be able to get them even cheaper there if I were like bought a bunch of them from like one dealer who was looking to get rid of them. Like there's things like that like in Pokemon, I know all the angles, whereas like I don't know. Like I'm sure the same angles that exist in Pokemon exist in sports. And so I could do it if I like had the connections or like knew where to go or who to talk to. But I just don't. So I'm just sort of buying, lowest on eBay, waiting for auctions, That's what I'd say. How about you for all those? Anything, that you regret buying in Pokemon or things that have gone down since you bought them or?
Oh yeah. A couple of things. Everything that's English modern, like well, not everything, but like the things that did decrease in value and that maybe I bought a bit too much was like English modern, which I stopped doing like a while ago. I've been more, I've been refocusing more on vintage. Like initially when I came back to the hobby, it was like half and half. And then when things became crazy, like I was priced out of most of the things vintage I wanted. Mm-hmm. So I started to play with modern more, but now I don't know. I've been going back. I mean, there are some mid-gen stuff that's pretty nice, pretty undervalued right now, I feel. Even some, like if you consider like some graded WotC era Japanese, like you can get, PSA 9s for like $15. It's like, when you compare it to modern stuff, it's like ridiculous. So I don't know. Right now I see a lot of opportunity. It's more about like holding off and maybe wait because things might get even crazier and maybe like there'll be even better buys in a couple of months. Right now it's pretty, we're summer. It's always like slower during summer. So I don't know. I'd say patience, but yeah, mostly modern English I wouldn't touch.
Yeah, the Sword and Shield era is definitely a pass in terms of, for me, for now. I'm going to collect that in like 2 years. But yeah, I'm in agreement. I think that everyone's in a different position, but for me, just talking about like what I'm doing, I'm budgeting a certain amount a month and I'm putting it into the best things that I see. And if I see nothing that feels like a really good deal or really good value, then I won't buy anything and I'll just roll it over to the next month. But so far, I've had no issue spending every dollar. And in fact, there's more that I've wanted to spend that I have held myself back from spending. So,
Yeah.
I'm still buying. But I sold a lot at Collecticon, and people are still buying, and I plan on listing some stuff on eBay. Again, I get hit up on Instagram every other day, someone wanting to buy something. I occasionally sell things to people. So, I'm selling too. But mostly buying.
And so you're planning to go to Denver, right?
Yep, that's the plan.
All right. Well, we'll probably see each other over there. So
Man, that's awesome.
that's pretty much all I have. So thanks for having me on. That was pretty nice.
Thanks for coming on. Yeah, and what I would say is like I have no I have no problem like people ribbing me on something that's great. Like that's completely fine. I think it only gets annoying if it's like if people are serious and it's like
it's personal.
Yeah, it's personal and serious, and it becomes like, and then it's like, well, you don't actually know what you're talking about, because even if you buy that stuff at the cheapest value, you know how to sell it, you know where to sell it, and you budgeted yourself, and you can sell it at these various ways, you can still actually make money on it. It just but like teasing me about it or like these types of things, like it's totally fair game. But I don't know.
It comes with the territory. When you expose,
if I'm too serious about it or defensive or whatever, I probably am. But
if you show your face out there and you speak your mind, you're exposed to criticism. So I guess.
Yeah. But and the truth is like I don't it's hard for me to like the things that I talk about, I'm able to talk about because I don't feel like I'm going to affect the market. So I talk about things that I've done in the past and why I did it. And then I talk about things that I'm doing now. Like when I say I'm buying like some rainbow rares from like Sun and Moon or baby shinies, like I can talk about that stuff because it's such a big market that I'm not worried that our channel is going to like affect the prices or impact that in any sort of way. But if I talk to you like specifically about like what Star Wars cards I'm buying right now, or like there are some things that I'm doing right now that I think are have much more upside that there's like 10 of or 15 of, and I can't talk about those things like while I'm actively doing them. So if that makes sense. So hopefully people can like understand and be respectful of that. But thank you so much, Chevels. Good to talk to you, man. Pleasure.
Thank you.
Pleasure as always. Any last minute word as we sort of end for today?
Yeah, you won't take another viewer. No one else in the waiting list.
No one's in the waiting room right now, so I think we will end unless someone wants to like jump on last minute. I do have to go fairly soon. I could go to like maybe 15 minutes, but if someone else wants to come on, they can jump in. I can give it a minute.
Yeah, my last word would be to encourage someone to jump on. I mean, why not? Show your face, speak your mind, talk about anything. I think Jake won't bite anyone. So it was a pleasure. Thanks, man.
Thanks, man.
See you.
Bye. All right. So if anyone wants to jump on, link is in the description. I can do one more quick one, but I think we'll probably start to end there. I know people asked a lot of questions in the chat. I apologize that I didn't get to those. I can see if anyone's asking anything here at the end, but let's see. Just looking for any questions or anything. Looks like we're pretty much done for today. Thank you guys all for hanging out. I hope you enjoy this. Definitely going to do my best to keep doing it. And, if you guys can like spread the word to other people, other Discord communities, I think maybe in the future, I'll even post this in some other Discord communities to see if anyone wants to jump into the discussion from other places. Bren asks thoughts on the trophy market from Heritage, and yeah, maybe we can do more of that in like a Q&A. I'll probably do another video in a couple of days where I can answer more questions specifically. Heritage was really interesting. it was interesting to see what sold high, what sold low. Within my overall take on the trophy card market without having like, was like, honestly, like, and I, hate to say this, but like the only trophy that I felt like was a real steal is that like TMB. It's just for that to only be, what did it sell? 35, 40,000, somewhere in there. Like if you compare that to the rest of the trophies and like what that trophy signifies versus like what the rest of them do, it's just undervalued. And the reason I think it's undervalued is because it is an executor. But it's also because I just don't think people know about it. And a lot of the high-end people don't even know what that is. Like a lot of the sports card people and the people people want the grail. They want the show off piece. They want the piece that's going to like, gonna market them, or either they can throw on their Instagram and they're going to get attention, who knows? So, but I think if you ask most like trophy card, like high-end collectors who've been here a long time and are obsessed with this stuff, they would probably tell you the same thing. And not that I think that card like went way under what it should. It's more just like some of the other stuff just continues to just be like very expensive relative to that. Do I think that card went a little under what it should? Yeah, probably. I think that card's maybe more of like a $70,000 card, $65,000 in this current market. So went maybe 20,000 under what I think it should go. For me, I put a bid in at 30,000. If I had had more money, I would have gone a little bit higher. 30,000 is just a lot of money right now, and there's a lot of good opportunity and options. So, but again, people are spending that much money on other cards in this hobby that I just don't think deserve it. So, yeah, I love Radar, but he unfortunately took a little bit of a hit on that card, but he's made a lot of money on other flips he's done and other trophy moves he's done. So I think part of it does come with the territory, of like, if you, when you spend big money on those types of cards that are fairly niche, but, could have potential high upside, like, you're going to win with some, you're probably going to lose with some, and particularly in a down market. And, it is what it is. He definitely took it in stride. And, it's not gonna get, I'm sure it's not gonna depress him to the point where he's not buying stuff and not continue to engage, and, he'll be fine. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, as far as like people like to Trevor's point, like asking me those questions about like the mistakes that I've made in this hobby, my biggest regret in this hobby is not buying more unlimited stuff. Honestly, I should have bought more unlimited. I should have been more bullish on some of that. And so it's really only I should have bought more or slightly different things. It's not, there's nothing I bought that I shouldn't have bought, or that I wish I didn't buy. Yeah. All right. I should wrap up because I need to get ready, and we have a family dinner tonight that I'm going to, but, as always, appreciate you all. Thanks for watching and tuning in, and I'll have more content for you in a couple days, I'm sure. All right. Take care, everyone.